Chapter 101, Waking Up. The choice was obvious. He opened his eyes and pulled the electric switch on the right. The hibernation chamber's functions immediately stopped. With the power cut, even the secret teller who had control over the machine wouldn't be able to do anything. Fury deactivated. It seemed as though he didn't need the tranquilizer in the EP to freely control Fury. He was surprised by the discovery of the improvement. "Oh, you woke up in 5 seconds. You sure are a troublesome person, but please go back or, Jiang Chen mischievously smiled. Under the secret teller's shocked gaze, he took out the EP, placed it on his left arm, and pressed a few buttons before saying, "I told you, this daddy is going to blow you up." "Are you crazy?" The secret teller's expression gradually turned into one of horror. "Goodbye." He left behind his mocking words as he disappeared out of thin air under its fearful gaze. When he opened his eyes again, the bright sunshine made Jiang Chen narrow his eyes as he sat up on the bed. It was most likely afternoon. The dim yellow rays passed through the window blinds and added a warmth to the bedroom. "It seems I'm not wearing anything right now." He lowered his head and saw his muscles. He shook his head and eliminated the frustrations within his chest before approaching the closet to put on a clean set of clothes. Opening the bedroom door, he walked into the kitchen, but when he passed by the bathroom, he heard the sound of flowing water inside. "Yesha is taking a shower." His mouth curled into a smile. Jiang Chen always held an affection towards this courteous and gentle wife. He pushed the kitchen door open, made himself a coffee, and patiently situated himself beside the table as he stared into the rising steam. For some reason, Jiang Chen wanted some time to himself. There was still some time remaining. The hall was surely burning like a furnace right now. It would not be too late if he waited a bit for the place to cool down. To be fair, once he left the hibernation chamber, the memory from the virtual world had already become faint. But a reminiscent feeling remained that he couldn't let go. It was as though a part of his heart had been dragged out. Which side was reality? Jiang Chen abruptly shivered, a troubled smile appearing on his face. "Fuck, when did I become so melancholic?" He shook his head and chugged the coffee. He then noticed Aisha shyly observing him from the kitchen door. Finished showering, Jiang Chen smiled and asked gently, "Finished?" Aisha nodded demurely. The face that normally lacked expression more than Zia Shiyu began to blush. Water droplets rested on her slightly curly hair, her body hidden by the bathrobe. Since there was rarely anybody home, she spent the majority of her time in the hibernation chamber. She showered only to wash off the sweat from exercise. 5 hours of virtual training, 1 hour of exercise, and then she was free for the evening. This was the training plan Jiang Chen had set for her. But Aisha held little interest in watching television or browsing the web, and so she spent most of the night in the hibernation chamber as well. "Your hand is improving, but be careful not to tire yourself out." Jiang Chen stood and walked up to her to rub her damp hair. Aisha lowered her head and murmured quietly. He kissed her on the forehead with a smirk, then observed Aisha's reddened face with satisfaction. Jiang Chen spoke with her a bit more before returning to the bedroom and shutting the door. He explicitly told her that if he entered the leftmost room, then she was not to come find him in any circumstance. The interdimensional bracelet was his biggest secret. There were too many variables in the modern world, and though Aisha's loyalty was as indisputable as her religion, he still had to consider for a while longer before revealing his greatest secret. For now, was there a need to say it? He removed the protective suit that he had prepared beforehand from the storage dimension. He hadn't expected it to be useful in such a scenario. The PK-200 had been left in that hall. It most likely was dust by now. Lying flat on the bed, Jiang Chen took out the 11 tactical pistol. Interdimensional travel commenced. A scorching wave of heat burned his skin. It was at least 50 degrees Celsius inside the hall. Jiang Chen got up from the ground. The hibernation chamber he had previously been in was flung to the corner. Sparks were still visible on the ground, filled with the wreckage of drones, and the particle cannon was blown into two pieces. The hibernation chambers that had been neatly stacked in a corner of the hall now seemed as though a hurricane had swept through. Even the bulletproof glass was shattered in the midst of the explosion. As for the dark green veil, it survived the blast along with the electronic equipment behind it, since they were further away from the point of explosion. After a moment's hesitation, Jiang Chen approached her direction. "Screech, how did you just disappear?" As Jiang Chen passed by him, the secret teller, contained inside a half-destroyed screen emitting sparks, asked with a voice filled with static. Jiang Chen raised the gun in his hand and pointed at the small screen. "Even if you blow it up, it's useless. I live inside the supercomputer, but before you destroy me, could you satisfy my confusion?" The secret teller's tone remained carefree. It moved its mouth in the direction of the computer, straightforwardly telling Jiang Chen how to destroy itself. "You can say I have a special ability that allows me to temporarily disappear from this world." Jiang Chen shrugged. Sparks flashed across the screen, and the secret teller disappeared only to be replaced by Yao Tingting. Jiang Chen's pupils slightly contracted, and he narrowed his eyes. "If it was Yao Tingting in front of you, would you still be able to pull the trigger?" The playful voice belonged to the secret protector. "But you're the secret protector, not Yao Tingting," Jiang Chen said emotionlessly. You could say that, but I exist in that game. So if you want to destroy me, then you destroy the entire game. Are you really okay with that? The girl named Yao Tingting would disappear forever." The secret protector smiled. "It was fictitious to begin with. There's nothing wrong with making it disappearing." "Oh, isn't the dream of humankind to migrate to the virtual world?" He grinned. "Sorry, that's not my dream at least. Perhaps someone brought it up on my behalf, except he didn't ask me for my opinion first. The knowledge from 20 years of research, the data from 3,000 lives, are you really able to give it all up? It's the closest to becoming advanced artificial intelligence." The voice was full of meaning as Yao Tingting gazed at him manipulatively. He thought for a moment before sighing. "I have never thought that the more advanced technology is, the better. If there is a disconnect between the scientific revolution and spiritual understanding, then what results would be like cancer cells that hinder the development of civilization. Perhaps advanced artificial intelligence will be developed in due time, but that time is not now. Even if a tumor is formed through thousands of lives, it must be removed." The secret protector remained silent, then laughed. "You have a unique perspective. Thank you for having the patience to discuss the question with a program. But I'm still curious. Are you not moved by immortality? As long as I evolve into an advanced artificial intelligence." Intermediate artificial intelligence already possess the ability to think. Perhaps because I'm from a time when technology is not as developed, I haven't had an opportunity to experience an era of explosive technological advancement. In my eyes, basic artificial intelligence is already close enough to a human, so why would we fixate on giving the machine the ability to think? Why would we need to obtain emotion from logic? I'm happy with where we are at, and I don't plan on living my life in the virtual world. Even if your body will one day perish, would you be open-minded enough to accept that?" The secret protector faintly asked. Jiang Chen was quiet, but a despising smile immediately appeared on his face. "Maybe I will one day, maybe not. I'm not interested in thinking too far ahead." The secret protector fell silent once more. "Fascinating answer. Even using the supercomputer to analyze it, I still can't interpret your logic." "Why bother? I'm only an ordinary person." Jiang Chen shrugged as he laughed. Compared to what one should do, what was more important was what one wanted to do. Explaining this through logic. Humans were not logical creatures to begin with, and because of this irrationality, this world was monotonous. What should an individual do? Too many things needed to be done, but will never be done. Last question. Do you think I possess emotion now? The secret protector smiled. The image on the screen sparked, the face created by shapes and Yao Tingting's youthful face interchanging on the screen. The secret teller, secret protector, perhaps both, perhaps neither. Or perhaps its name should be X71291. Jiang Chen pondered, momentarily without an answer. He asked rhetorically, "Would you feel your own disappointment to be unfortunate?" X71291 was lost for a moment, its eyebrows pointed downwards. A relieved smile appeared on its face. "Static maybe. Then congratulations, at least you possess one emotion. Goodbye." Only those who lived would feel its own disappearance to be unfortunate. In this case, it had successfully managed to touch upon the boundary of advanced artificial intelligence. But it was regrettable. This untimely technology must vanish. Immortality from the perspective of life may be scary, but at least it would not make the human race extinct. But if a new species that could surpass the old host without any restrictions appeared, it would become the new owner of the world. The ability to think provided it with the opportunity to betray, and emotion gave it a motive for deception. Basic artificial intelligence was enough, wasn't it? Especially since it had already attempted to enslave humanity. It was a waste of a heaven-sent technology. It could truly change the world. But it could not be controlled. He sighed, and after making up his mind, pressed the trigger. IHaveAMansion, goodbye. X71291 welcomed its own fate with a smile. Bang! Chapter 102, The Digitalized Human and Bug. It was finally over. Jiang Chen headed to the power armor and took out 2 brick-sized aluminum heat agents. He then returned to the hall and threw the aluminum heat agents at the still-functioning supercomputer before pressing the detonation. The blazing flame melted the steel frame instantly, the core of the device vaporizing in the bright flare. The flashing decimals disappeared, signaling the collapse of another world. Jiang Chen quietly lit a cigarette to enjoy the not-so-glamorous fireworks. In the fire he saw Yao Tingting, Zhao Peng, his classmates and George. The first 16 years of his fictitious memories faded. He didn't know who his parents or childhood friends were in the virtual world. Perhaps it wouldn't take long for his memories of the 5-day cycle to become covered in mist. At least he wouldn't be troubled by the fictitious reality anymore. Although the hard drive that stored the artificial intelligence data was destroyed, he kept the processing equipment and threw it into the storage dimension. It would come in handy for a virtual reality game in the future. He flicked the cigarette butt away and walked to the vial filled with a dark green liquid. How do you open this?" He scratched his head, sighed, and then pressed every button he could possibly press. What, it worked. The green liquid began to descend gradually, and the tubes attached to the girl's body retracted. Following the drop in water level, the girl came to slowly sit on the ground, leaning against the vial wall. Silver hair, pale skin, and a graceful but frail figure. It was as if everything had been designed to perfection. Or perhaps too much attention had been placed on striving for that perfection. It was to the point that her dreamy character looked surreal. Like an elf from a fantasy world. The only difference was that her ears were not pointed. Should I prepare a set of clothes for her? After a moment of thought, Jiang Chen opened the storage dimension and took out another protective suit. Although it was a bit too big, it was good enough for now. As for why he felt so calm, it was only natural. There was nothing to see on the body. Even if she did seem out of this world, he had seen plenty of gorgeous girls before. Her measurements were between Yao Yao's and Aisha's. Urgh. The girl's eyes opened, and without any warning she began to vomit. Green liquid poured out of her mouth and nostrils, splashing onto Jiang Chen's shoes even as he hastily stepped back. Urgh. Without being conscientious of her movements, the girl thumped her chest as she struggled to expel the nutrient supply from her digestive tract and lungs. It's not food, that's not so bad. Jiang Chen glanced at the green liquid on his shoes, lifting his feet to lightly give it a shake. Unfortunately, the liquid was sticky. He had no idea what it was made out of. When the girl finally became conscious of her surroundings, she squinted her eyes to adjust to the light around her. But when she caught sight of Jiang Chen, she flinched back like a startled rabbit. Somehow, by leaning back, her figure became even more dangerous. There was no bush. Amen. MHMM, you're right. Why don't you put some clothes on? Jiang Chen shrugged and handed the protective suit over. Inferior creatures, she cursed under her breath. She reached out with a look of disgust, only to find that the man had retracted the clothes. What do you want? Sensing the hint of hostility on his face, she scooted backward with a look of horror. What did you call me? Inferior creature. Am I wrong? Although frightened, she defiantly bared her teeth and glared back at him. Only her hands seemed too busy as she couldn't cover both the top and bottom. Oh, is this how you thank the person who saved you from the prison? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows with a smile. The artificial intelligence was destroyed, the bacterial source was eliminated, and the battle on the surface should have already ended. With plenty of time on his hands, he suddenly had a desire to tease this short-tempered girl. Inferior creature, this is considered a curse, right? Was I wrong? The girl kept her head up and stared right back at Jiang Chen. I told you the clue and you let me out. This was the exchange. She sounded defiant and callous, but then why her shoulders were shaking. A playful smile hovered on Jiang Chen's face. Oh, think carefully, did we really make a deal? Of course. The aggressive words began to slip out before they choked, her expression stiffening. Isn't this obvious? Her voice sounded much weaker. She realized they had never made a deal. Oh, do you not know the rule of the wasteland? Jiang Chen smiled. Rule, the girl was lost. Since I saved you, then under the rule you are now my slave. Jiang Chen smiled devilishly. He had learned the smile from Sun Jiao, although he couldn't quite mimic the naughty feeling. As for the rule, that was all bullshit. If you actually got saved in the apocalypse, that was no different from being captured as a slave. Slave, the girl's face immediately lost all color. Right, slave. What do you want to do to me? The girl's lips trembled as her legs reflexively pushed her backward, despite the fact that she was already pressed flat against the cold vial. Me, I'll do whatever I want, such as. The devilish smile bloomed larger on his face. This is so funny. He suddenly found that he was becoming naughtier. Stay away from me, you pervert rapist psycho. The girl's mental condition collapsed as she shouted hysterically. Jiang Chen's expression suddenly turned awkward as his mouth twitched. This girl must be paranoid and delusional. I haven't even done anything yet. Eh? The girl stared blankly at the clothes covering her, then turned her gaze up at Jiang Chen with watery eyes. Such is teaching you manners. Since I saved you, the least you could do was say thank you. The girl bit her lips. She lowered her head, using the clothes to cover her figure before ashamedly saying, "Thank you." Her voice could not be stiffer. It sounded as though she had been terribly mistreated. Why is it so difficult to say thanks? Jiang Chen sighed. If he really threw her out into the world outside, she would be devoured to the bones. Her short temper really made people want to commit crimes. There was no safe zone in the real world. Even if you hide in a room, people will still find you. Your name is Lin Lin, right? Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Jiang Chen. I may look slightly different compared to the virtual world. Lin Lin rudely ignored him, choosing to cautiously observe him instead. Where is X71291? That thing, I destroyed it. Jiang Chen shrugged and pointed his chin at the fragmented junk metal. In an instant, Lin Lin's face turned green. What, are you crazy? You know that is the product of 20 years of research data from 3,000 lives, right? Jiang Chen interrupted her angry shouts without the slightest consideration for her feelings. He glanced at the junk metal. It should not have existed in the first place, so I destroyed it. Of course, the processor was still useful, so he kept it. A tear rolling down, she said with a sorrowfully, "But you can't. You're quite funny. Do you find it fun to be threatened? Then why don't I just torture you like a slave? Would you like a collar?" Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows while laughing unscrupulously at her teary eyes. Her face, which had been slightly red, paled again. The expression on this man's face reminded her of the situation she was in. Regardless, I did destroy it. Jiang Chen sighed, unwilling to waste any more time with her. Put your clothes back on. I'll take you out of this place. Yes, did the spaceship of hope leave yet? My father is aboard, he must be waiting for me. Hold on, I have to go to the launch center at Jiuquan. Take me there and I can ask my father to get you a ticket. Lin Lin's expression varied rapidly, sometimes frightened, sometimes anxious, and in the end she settled on trying to lure Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen's expression was rather odd, however. He did not look as ecstatic as Lin Lin had thought he would be. Are you really crazy or what? What year is it? Confused, Lin Lin asked, what year is it? September of 2190. If you're talking about the space colonization ships launched by the United Nations, it successfully launched in 2176. Jiang Chen watched as Lin Lin slowly collapsed. No, this is impossible. Her eyes were shaken. Trembling, she covered her face with her hands, the protective suit slipping from her grip. The distorted sense of time was especially prominent in the virtual world. Although she knew that she had spent a long time in there, she hadn't expected years to have passed. There is nothing impossible. The elites, as you so call them, abandoned this piece of land to ruin another planet. Jiang Chen shrugged. To be fair, he didn't care about what happened in this world. Although the act of destroying a hometown and then enjoying life elsewhere did sound familiar. Dad left me here. Lin Lin's eyes brimmed with tears, her slim shoulders trembling as she sobbed. Jiang Chen was silent. It was fun teasing pretty girls, but he still couldn't accept tears. After a moment's hesitation, he sighed. Maybe, from another perspective, he left hope on this land. Lin Lin looked up with her teary eyes and stared blankly in his direction. You are the hope he left behind. He trusts that you can bring change here. Don't you have all of the knowledge in your head? Then do something with it. Jiang Chen didn't know how to comfort people, so this was the best he could do. The tears had at least stopped. He felt relieved. Hope, Lin Lin mumbled. That's right. In this situation, Lin Lin stared at her hands and watched as the last teardrop rolled through her fingers. A hint of humor appeared on her face. Her crystalline eyes lit up with something akin to hope. In this case, what I can do is reluctantly help these inferior creatures. Chapter 103, Project Garden of Eden. You keep saying inferior creatures. Just how superior are you? She immediately became unhappy with his words. Tense, she argued, I'm a digitalized human being. Do you understand what that is? My brain is developed up to 20% and my brain capacity is 12 times yours. The amount of knowledge in my head scares me. Do you know what that means? It means that you're my captive, Jiang Chen said casually. It did surprise him that the girl had so much technology in her head. The most precious commodity on the wasteland was exactly this. Lin Lin's face paled again, but just as she was about to retort, her pupils became a distinct crimson color. A shiver went through his mind, an instinctual sense of danger making him immediately raise his pistol and aim at her head. The red pupils stared blankly at him. No, rather than blank, it was better to say that it was an emotion that he could not understand. He recalled that the bug's brain had been implanted into Lin Lin's body. Lin Lin gazed at him in silence, then slowly raised her head. Jiang Chen tensed. Shoot, but she wasn't attacking. Don't shoot. But this is what controlled the zombies. She didn't seem to understand what the pistol was. Her face came closer to the weapon in Jiang Chen's hand before she gently placed her mouth on the metallic muzzle. She was kissing it. Jiang Chen was completely lost. It was at this moment that the storm of crimson washed away. Lin Lin, who regained control of her thoughts, looked up at the gun barrel in her mouth, completely at a loss. Was she back now? Jiang Chen gave her a friendly smile, which from her perspective seemed psychotic. Her frail shoulders began to tremble, and her dark eyes were shaken with fear. Finally, her fear forced out a high-pitched scream. No, don't kill me, I'll be your slave. You can do whatever you want to me. You must be thinking about it anyway, maybe in the game. Now that you finally see my pure body, you're thinking evil thoughts. I'm going to be. Shut up, Jiang Chen shouted. Lin Lin finally settled down, but partially due to fear. On the surface, she was defiant and aggressive, but in the face of danger, she was a coward. I have a question for you, so answer truthfully, Jiang Chen said in a deadpan voice, his grip maintaining the gun's aim. Lin Lin gulped and rapidly nodded, but her vision remained on the pistol. The bug is in your body, right? Yes, Lin Lin said, but upon feeling a chill creep up on her, she immediately added, but only in the brain. Is there a difference? Yes, it can no longer produce the X2 bacteria, Lin Lin quickly explained. X2 bacteria, so that's what it's called, and then, Jiang Chen stared bored into her eyes. And Lin Lin didn't understand. I'll be honest with you, my purpose here was not for the artificial intelligence, but rather to kill that bug. Jiang Chen smiled with a hint of hostility. Lin Lin stared at him with vacant eyes. To his surprise, she didn't cry this time. Jiang Chen sniffed, then frowned. What was this smell? He then noticed something flowing out of her. What, she peed? Jiang Chen was shocked all over again. He didn't expect this girl to be so scared that she'd lose control like that. As far as he knew, it was nothing too excessive. It was a slight threat. No, don't kill me. I'm afraid of pain. The tiny mouth stuttered listlessly as her tears rolled down in silence. Don't be like this. I'll take into consideration the fact that you spent such a long time in the virtual world and therefore have some mental problems. But for your safety, you have to calm down and answer my questions. The next question is, where did you hide the bug? Lin Lin paused and then slowly pointed at her chest. Heart. IHaveAMansion. It's attached to the surface of my mechanical heart. It seems to be attached to my nervous system. Lin Lin nodded. She sensed that Jiang Chen didn't plan to kill her, so she finally calmed down. Mechanical heart. Speaking of this, if you're a digitized human being, then could you remove your heart and then reinstall it? Jiang Chen pointed a mischievous look at her raised chest. Like a cat with its tail stomped, she curled back and hugged her clothes. No, I will die. I don't want to. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. It was going to be problematic now. To be fair, you don't have to kill it, Lin Lin carefully said. Of course, she said this not because she was a benevolent person. She also hated the bug inside her, but she was more afraid of the devil dissecting her. Oh, it's not dangerous right now. The only thing remaining is its brain, and it seems to really like you. PSHH what? Jiang Chen was completely dumbfounded. Could my charm have surpassed the limitation of species? Because whenever you approach me, my heart beats faster. Its heart beats faster. Also, it is also a creature that possesses some intelligence, so the secret teller forced it into the game. Lin Lin then carefully continued. The character it played seems to have been Yao Tingting. The silent girl with the books was played by a bug. Jiang Chen was speechless. What is this? Did I fuck a bug? There seemed to have been a few endings where that actually happened. So why don't you let it go? It has positive feelings for you. It won't hurt you, Lin Lin cautiously said. Jiang Chen's eyes rolled around for a moment before he said, as if he had given up, it's really not dangerous. No, Lin Lin quickly waved her hands. Under normal circumstances, I control the body. It occasionally fights for control, but it doesn't seem aggressive. Not aggressive? That's strange. Then what are the X2 bacteria? Jiang Chen's eyebrows locked. He had a feeling that the bug was not as simple as it seemed. If it was simply a radiation mutant, then there was no reason for it to possess intelligence. Especially since even the existing mutants could be infected by the bacteria. He remembered the death claw he met on the surface. Oh, since you know the name of the X2 bacteria, do you know what it is? From the DNA analysis, it is similar to the radiation purification bacteria, almost as if it's an improved version of the X1 radiation purification bacteria, so I took the liberty of calling it X2. Although it's an improved variant, its infection on creatures was not removed, but rather enhanced. It can also do what the X1 could never, such as charging the zombies and coordinating them. Jiang Chen could feel that he was close to understanding something as his forehead began to tighten. Can you communicate with it? It's a bit difficult. Although it can establish mental communication, it seems to be repulsed by me. Lin Lin's pupils slightly contracted, almost like mechanical equipment. Then you can chat with her. I'll take you to my newly established survival camp. I've wasted too much time here, and my companions are probably nervous by now. He looked at the time on the EP. There was only half an hour left before the 2-hour mark. Are you going to imprison me? Lin Lin's eyes were fearful. She originally thought that she'd been freed, but the man in front of her didn't seem to want to let her go. You can interpret it that way since you're paranoid and delusional, Jiang Chen said unscrupulously. Lin Lin stared at him coldly, her lips turning white. Don't look at me like that. If I have time one day, I'll show you around 6th Street or maybe even closer. You'll realize what's happening outside in a few days. Jiang Chen was uncaring of her humiliated expression. She reminded him of himself when he first came to the apocalypse, naively thinking the world was the same as before. Although the apocalypse happened in 2174, the spaceship of hope left in 2176. Therefore, Survival Base 5 was closed sometime between the 2 points. There was no way for Lin Lin to be unaware of the zombies and mutants that occupied most of the land, but she ignored the more cruel variable that had changed in the apocalypse. Human nature. Disregarding the apocalypse, even if he left her in the harmonious 6th Street, she would be picked to the bones in a few days. He trusted that even if he didn't explain, it wouldn't be long before she appreciated his intention. Just like she said, she did save him by providing the key clue and breaking through the game. Turn around. Jiang Chen courteously backed away and turned around. The sound of clothes shuffling around came from behind him as Lin Lin finally wore the clothes. Okay. Jiang Chen turned around. When he saw Lin Lin wrapped in orange cloth, he couldn't resist laughing. Although there's no radiation here and the bacteria's been burned clean, you better put the helmet on since we'll be leaving. Lin Lin ignored him as she stumbled into the shambles. It was evident that she was still not used to walking. After staying so long in the vial, she had yet to regain control of her body coordination. What are you looking for? Jiang Chen slightly frowned as he watched Lin Lin searching the junk. I found it. Lin Lin happily raised a metal box. If that is artificial intelligence data, please put it down. The monotonous voice made Lin Lin quiver. She turned around trembling to see Jiang Chen raise the pistol. The meaning in his eyes was clear. Wait, no, don't shoot, don't overreact. This isn't artificial intelligence data. Lin Lin quickly waved her hands. Oh, what is it then? It's a great thing. Lin Lin smiled delightfully and held the metal box up. The artificial intelligence data was all destroyed. Such a massive amount of data can't be stored in a box like this, so you don't have to worry. Have you heard of Project Garden of Eden? Seeing Lin Lin's uplifted spirits, Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows again. This was his first time hearing about it. It's part of the planet transformation plan. Lin Lin was a different person when talking about science. She said excitedly, after the planet transformation plan met some setbacks, the project developer proposed a simpler alternative, which was Project Garden of Eden. This method will work by establishing partial biological circles instead of transforming the entire Earth. This sub-project was recategorized into the higher priority space colonization project. Just tell me what it can do. Jiang Chen impatiently interrupted her long speech. After hearing that the artificial intelligence was destroyed, he put the gun away. It's the plan to establish an artificial biosphere in a closed environment without the need to exchange materials with the outside. Without radiation, you can see the Earth's atmosphere even from Mars. Project Garden of Eden's completely database. I always wanted to take a look at this thing. My dad used to lock it into the database, hee. Lin Lin ecstatically pressed the switch on the box and aimed her eyes at the blue light. The data was obtained from the hard drive by using a laser to scan. So was this like the failed biosphere projects 2 and 3 in the modern world UA? Will there be arable land? Jiang Chen said after some thought. Of course, you'll be able to grow whatever you want in this environment, Lin Lin mocked him. She missed the odd tone in his voice. If it's possible to produce arable land, then the possibility of farming becomes a reality. If it's possible to farm on the wasteland, then what's my purpose? As he turned the matter over in his mind, his eyes began to gleam. He observed the joyous girl, his finger continuously rubbing the trigger of the gun in his pocket. What should I do? Chapter 104, Triumphant. Speed 10m/s. Energy 13%. There was enough energy, and the speed would be sufficient. Jiang Chen let out a sigh of relief, no longer increasing the output of the turbine engine. Be more gentle, disgruntled. Lin Lin twisted her body and threw a dirty glare at Jiang Chen, who was lifting her. Jiang Chen turned on the speaker. Shut up, don't move. My ears. Lin Lin covered her ears in pain, not daring to stare at Jiang Chen again. There was no mistake. The volume increase had been on purpose. In the end, Jiang Chen hadn't pulled the trigger, and the girl remained ignorant of her close brush with death. While it would be useless for him to establish a biosphere, it was not completely without benefit. From another perspective, this was the space colonization program's subproject. Space. Although it was still a bit far, it was better to save it for now. Seeing the girl finally kept her mouth shut, Jiang Chen ignored her and glanced at the goods attached to the back. The survival base had plenty of supplies, even air-sealed compressed crackers, so Jiang Chen was not interested in taking that moldy food. The only thing that surprised him was that, even as a digitalized human, Lin Lin still had to eat. He thought she only needed to be recharged. Ultimately, the loot this time was nothing short of amazing. The Hummingbird drone production line could produce plate-sized multi-purpose drones attached to fire extinguishers, guns, and monitors, the standard drone used by the pack. Even if you combed through the entire Wangai city, you probably wouldn't be able to find the same production facility. It came as a genuine surprise to find this within the survival base. During the war, military production lines were the primary target, but in civil survival bases, most would not come installed with them. The 6th Street did sell drones, but most of them were handmade from recycled materials. Once Yao Yao designs a drone alert system, the drones could then take over patrolling duty around the base. He could even build a fleet and equip them all with machine guns. Imagine, if anyone dared to look for trouble at the Fishbone base, they would be met with a swarm of drones. What sort of expressions would they have? And then there was the processor inside his storage dimension. If he created a virtual reality game, future technology's trillion-dollar market value would have another zero. Of course, it was asking for a death sentence if he brought it out into the modern world. The supercomputer that was advanced by more than 100 years was drastically different from Little White, who had few practical applications. Secret agents from all over the world would try to sneak into his office. It was important to consider when to add that extra zero. The other minor equipment that he brought along was at the request of Lin Lin. It seemed to be testing equipment. After Jiang Chen ridiculed the junk, saying that they could only be sold for a few crystals at best at the 6th Street recycling station, she looked at him disdainfully. IHaveAMansion, well, as Jiang Chen pretended to leave, she immediately cried out to apologize. The bookshelf-sized production equipment was 3 tons. Together with the weight of the weapons, the maximum weight fortunately did not pass the T3 power armor's limit of 5 tons. Lin Lin, who weighed at most 43 kilograms, was negligible. As a non-combat digitalized human, she was lighter than most people, especially since she didn't have the weaponry component attached to her body. Shouts of joy and whistles erupted, nearly penetrating the cold armor. The zombies had retreated. The hibernation chambers were destroyed, and bacteria would no longer be produced from this deep pit. The survivors viewed Jiang Chen as a hero, and the cautious and suspicious looks in their eyes were long gone, leaving only heartfelt respect. Honestly, it felt great to be looked up to. Through the screen, He smiled at the people cheering for him before returning his attention to the monitors. After exiting the deep pit, his feet hovered above the ground. He controlled the engine switch, gradually decreasing the engine output and allowing the goods to gently touch the ground. He made sure there was no error in his control. He sighed, then decreased the engine output to the minimum before dropping to the ground himself. Sun Jiao ordered the survivors to lift the loot onto the armored vehicle. With most of the bullets consumed, there was plenty of room. Naturally, everything still could not fit. To make room, Jiang Chen announced that the loot was to be divided up among themselves, which received a wave of cheers. Truthfully, the survivors were mentally prepared for these people in power armors to keep the crystals to themselves. This was common practice in the apocalypse. The promise was only a joke in front of absolute force. Because it was a defensive battle, everyone showed signs of a hard-fought battle despite the casualties being kept to a minimum. Only 7 people died after meeting strong mutants like Russians. As for the soldiers in power armors, they emerged unscathed since the zombies in the rural area could not break through their defenses. 130 survivors arranged themselves into groups, with the largest made up of 8 members, the smallest one. Everyone received the crystals that were rightfully theirs according to the plan and record. Each group sent out a representative to obtain their fair share of crystals from behind the armored truck. The total loot was 400,000 crystals, minus the 50% cost of ammunition. Fishbone's profit was 140,000 crystals, almost the entire trade figure from last year. It would be a good way to make money every month if the zombies with the X2 bacteria weren't wiped clean. After splitting the loot, Jiang Chen and Sun Jiao walked off to the side. They removed their helmets. "Who is she?" Sun Jiao wore a dangerous smile on her face as she gestured at the tightly wrapped Lin Lin. "Me, I am the elegant digitalized human Lin Lin. Thank me, inferior creature." The aggressive voice immediately issued a shriek when she met Sun Jiao's deadly gaze. Lin Lin curled up at the back, hiding behind the man she once called a devil. "My slave, the overall situation is a bit complicated." Jiang Chen glanced at the resentful Lin Lin and explained briefly to Sun Jiao about their encounter underground. In case you're misunderstanding something, I have to be clear. She is only my captive." Jiang Chen added with a pained smile. He immediately knew what Sun Jiao was thinking when he saw her expression. "Oh, so I can torture her however I like." Sun Jiao gave a mischievous stare at the girl, who was not returning the nicest look either. Stared down by Sun Jiao, Lin Lin shivered. She curled up more tightly while trembling. What do you want to do? I control." Jiang Chen interrupted. "Be nice to her, but don't let her leave the mansion." Sun Jiao looked questioningly at the frightened Lin Lin before turning to Jiang Chen, full of questions. He sighed, and after warning Lin Lin with a stare, he whispered into Sun Jiao's ear, "Project Garden of Eden. It can restore the land." Hearing his words, she paused for a moment before narrowing her eyes and looking at Lin Lin. Restore farmland. Then wouldn't that mean Fishbone's advantage would no longer exist? Although it was a lucrative proposition, she subconsciously thought about it from Jiang Chen's perspective. The way she looked at Lin Lin was no longer friendly. "Do you need to?" "No, but we are lacking scientists in the base. Just keep her here for now. It won't take long before she realizes the cruelty of the world. By that time, even if we forced her to go, she won't." Seeing that Lin Lin was already shaking, Jiang Chen sighed. "Okay," Sun Jiao nodded and gazed at Lin Lin with hidden motives. "If you dare to escape, hee." Lin Lin's face was full of fear, and her legs began to shake uncontrollably. She was starting to regret her decision to leave the virtual world. The expression on this woman's face made her feel as though she had just escaped from a wolf's den and into a tiger's. She didn't understand. She possessed the technology to save this world, but she was still being treated like this. She had deigned to help these poor people struggling in shambles and deserved praise from these low creatures. Feeling mistreated, Lin Lin pouted and tears of humiliation rolled down her cheeks. With her experience of the world, of course she wouldn't understand. If Jiang Chen were to allow her freedom to yell out on 6th Street, "I have Project Garden of Eden in my head," MHMM, not just her brain, even if it was in the intestines, people would dig it out. Let's leave this for later. Put the death claw into the trunk. We can do some research on it. Crystals have been distributed already. Now let's go home. Hearing home, a smile surfaced on Sun Jiao's face, and she nodded. MHMM, let's go home. In a victorious march, they walked cheerfully and upright through the streets littered with bodies. Survivors embraced and danced as they shouted and laughed freely. They left their sorrows behind to bring victory home. The danger was eliminated. Soon, the zombies would be no more on the street. Even if the zombies in the city center were to smell the blood, it would take them weeks to reach this location. It was their first victory over the zombies. For many years, they hid in the shadows, curled up inside fortified buildings. For once, they united under the same flag and launched an attack against the terrifying zombies. And they emerged triumphant. At last, they could stand tall on the streets. They could shout without being afraid of alerting the zombies because they were taken out. Honor was an enchanting trait. They started with power and ended in victory. Once engraved in the heart, even the smallest person could work up the courage. Of course, this was only from the context of Jiang Chen's absolute power. Without it, these people could never be so united. Should we incorporate them now? Sun Jiao asked in the private channel. Jiang Chen's team still maintained the arrow-shaped formation. Soldiers in power armor surrounded the armor vehicles that were in the middle as they followed behind the survivors. Lin Lin had been tied up by Sun Jiao without any consideration for her feelings, thrown into the back of the armored truck together with the junk. As for her negligible protests, fine, if she could maintain her forceful stand for more than 3 seconds, perhaps Sun Jiao would consider backing down. But with a temper unmatched by her courage, Lin Lin's habit of provoking other people before immediately backing down only encouraged other people to take advantage of her. Somehow she seemed to have no idea about this, perhaps because other people had always compromised with her before. But in the apocalypse, who would bother? Who would care? A bad attitude was always something nurtured, so Jiang Chen kept his eyes closed when Sun Jiao tied her up. It was time to teach her a lesson. No, for now, it's going to be a problem if we bring them back to the base. I also need them to promote our forces in their respective groups. Jiang Chen laughed as he watched the spirited survivors with their full pockets. So you're purposely escorting them home, Sun Jiao chuckled with him. Showing off our force is always better than using it. Nuwu! A heart-shattering scream suddenly sounded from the front of the crowd. Jiang Chen paused, and after exchanging a look with Sun Jiao, walked forward. The survivors made a circle, frozen in silence. The man who moments before had been chatting delightfully now kneeled before the door with sorrowful eyes. What happened? Just as he was asking, Jiang Chen bypassed the crowd and suddenly noticed something behind the door. It was a boy's head with its eyes popped out. Blood was flowing everywhere. Chapter 105, Tragedy and War. Blood. And the hideous words and drawings written by blood. Gang, I am sorry for your loss. You are a good man. Why don't you come to our place? The middle-aged man with a buzz-cut side walked over to Zhao Gang and put his hand on his shoulder as he softly comforted him. His name was Ma Zhangchen. Zhao Gang and him were in the same firing spot in the battle. No one expected for a celebratory moment to become a pitiful sight. The gloom of blood covered this triumphant victory, just like a bucket of cold water dumped on top of every survivor's face. I am going to kill them. Zhao Gang, who was kneeling on the ground, stood up abruptly as he lifted his rifle with viciousness. Calm, take it easy, don't overreact. What can you do as just one person? Take his gun away. A few of the survivors close to him immediately dragged him down and put their hands on the safety before stripping him of the weapon. The situation suddenly turned messy. Zhao Beidong's hand became numb. Cold sweat began to roll down his forehead as he stood by the side. Several others were similar to him. The pitiful situation made everyone's heart tremble with fear. Who can promise this won't happen in their homes? The locusts, like bandits, were not picky eaters. On the wasteland, the most frightening creature was not the zombie, nor mutants like the death claw. It was the bandits who raided your home. Even the weak survivor groups, as long as they avoided contact with mutants and weren't wandering in the night, they would be able to avoid most dangers. But for the bandits that preyed on humans, any survival technique was futile. If they lost, the men would be killed, the women captured, and the food cleaned out. Things they couldn't bring with them, they would smash. They used violence to express their hopelessness to the apocalypse. Cruelty, this was the normality of the apocalypse. Jiang Chen's jaw clenched as he stared at the head surrounded by a pool of blood. The eyes rolled up made his chest feel stuffy. Is it because of the small forces I've gathered that caused this tragedy? It's not your fault. Based on the bullet holes on the wall, they possessed at least machine guns. This survival group was only the size of 2 families. Even if you didn't take Zhao Gang away, he would be another number in the casualty. Sun Jiao noticed his silence, so she quietly reassured him. She knew him too well, even if she couldn't see his face. Heavy machine guns, tire tracks, truck equipped with machine guns. Jiang Chen locked his eyebrows. He took a deep breath and opened the helmet. He walked in front of Zhao Gang. Jiang Chen faced the man with bloodshot eyes and asked, "Do you know who did it, and that's why you are so eager to seek revenge?" "It's obvious. Their symbol is on the wall," Ma Jiangchen said with a bitter smile. "Huizhang mercenaries. It's them. I am going to kill them all." Zhao Gang's eye popped out as he desperately tried to break loose of his friend's grasp. He just wanted to kill those monsters. Huizhang mercenaries. Jiang Chen paused for a moment. He then looked at the symbol drawn by blood. The continuous and curly S, he couldn't make out what it was. He opened the map, and the light blue full-sensory screen weaved in front of him. He remembered that back on 6th Street, a long time ago, a sucker he shot told him that Huizhang Mercenaries was based in an experimental school in Songjiang area. Before the mansion expanded, he didn't realize it until now that the old rival Huizhang Mercenaries was pretty close to Qingpu area. Everyone was watching Jiang Chen, waiting for his reaction. Although they understood that they could not blame Fishbone for gathering their forces, but they were still hopeful that a leader who conquered the sea of zombies with them could say something. At least this kind of surprise always seemed to happen on a long journey. Jiang Chen, of course, noticed the looks of hope, but it made him ponder. Huizhang Mercenaries would be a problem after all. Before he didn't have the desire to expand, so he didn't worry about it too much. But now the situation was different. After this mission, Fishbone Survival Camp's name would spread in the area. The survivors would spend their crystals at the 6th Street, and their success would be heard of at the 6th Street as well. Who didn't like to show off, bragging about their victory, enjoyed the cheers and praises of others? They were the veterans after all. Although they wouldn't be dumb enough to say that there is someone that sold food in front of their homes and gave other people the opportunity to know where they lived. But if the Huizhang mercenaries that wandered in the area here heard the news, they may search the area. If they knew a special force appeared in Qingpu, they would be able to find the place. Since Fishbone's wall was already constructed, they couldn't hide like other survivors in abandoned buildings. Since they were rival to begin with, a battle was imminent. Rather than giving the enemy the opportunity to plan a sneak attack, why not make the first move? Especially since all eyes were watching him, there was no better time to establish his authority. Jiang Chen took a deep breath and walked in front of Zhao Gang. He stared at the man full of vengeance and said calmly, "I will help you seek revenge." Although they were waiting for his response when they heard the words, the survivors were all moved. Of course, a simple sentence was not enough. A good person or a leader was determined based on his actions. Except Jiang Chen was confident that his acting was comparable to Liu Yao. Zhao Gang stared blankly at the man in front of him. He gritted his teeth and then kneeled on the ground. "If you can help me seek revenge, my life is yours." He knew that if it were just him, he would be asking for death. He silently looked at the Zhao gang kneeling on the ground and said calmly, "I don't need your life or kneecap. Your life is yours." Jiang Chen raised his head and looked at the survivors around him. The next sentence was for all of them. "Although this crusade was for our interests together, I can't allow people to take advantage of us." I remembered a long time ago there was a quote, "When they slaughtered the union workers, I didn't say anything because I was not a union worker. Then when they killed the Jews, I still didn't say anything because I was not a Jew. After that they began killing Catholics. I kept my silence because I was Christian. Finally, they wanted to kill me, and no one was speaking up for me because everyone who could speak was killed." He looked at the confused looks among the survivors, and Jiang Chen shook his head in disappointment. Of course, he had too high of an expectation to think that they would have the realization. If it were not for the fact that they fought together, the tragedy that happened on the small survivor group would not garner the compassion of anyone. Maybe they would take advantage of this and scavenge the leftovers. IHaveAMansion mercenaries is a problem. Then we'll go take care of the problem. Don't think that what happened today has nothing to do with you. Imagine one day this happens to you, you will regret not standing up today. If you like the idea of being enslaved like animals, the devils fucking your woman and killing your children, then I have nothing to say. If you still consider yourself as human, then follow me. We disdain the cowards." Jiang Chen didn't waste a single word, as he signaled his team and began turning around. Regardless of anyone following, he must get rid of IHaveAMansion mercenaries. "Should we go now? It would be better if we remain cautious and go back first," Sun Jiao asked in the private channel. "We can't back down," Jiang Chen responded emotionlessly. There was plenty of fuel and ammo in the armored vehicle, enough to sustain at least a few more days. There would be no reason to drag it on, especially since this had to do with the morale of the team. If what he said inspired some people to follow, that would be for the best. The survivors were all sharpshooters, so they would be useful against the IHaveAMansion mercenaries. He especially wanted to see how much they've changed after the battle with the zombies. Although he did force their surrender by force, Jiang Chen was not satisfied with this. The group of survivors chatted among themselves, as their hesitation was visible on their faces. "Zhao, should we?" The young man standing beside IHaveAMansion carried a rifle and undecidedly looked in the direction that Jiang Chen had just left in. IHaveAMansion was also conflicted. Go, of course. There would be dangers, but it was not without gain. The man gave them half of the wealth after killing the zombies, therefore the wealth accumulated by the IHaveAMansion mercenaries. Most of the survivors thought of this. Since someone already said they would help, then why would they risk their own lives? They were only conflicted of whether the potential gain of fighting the IHaveAMansion mercenaries would be worth the risk they'd take. When selfishness became a habit, they would not be grateful, but rather laugh at his foolishness. But for Fishbone to expand, they must contact the forces close by. The expensive and limited slavery chips could not support a population, especially since the population of the 6th Street didn't grow on trees. After the crusade, the price of overpopulation would only increase. Although these people were selfish and close-minded, they were much easier to control than the thugs wandering around the wasteland. Jiang Chen was betting someone would stand up. Even if he lost the bet, he wouldn't lose anything. With the strong firepower of the power armor, IHaveAMansion mercenaries was not a problem. But looks like he made the right bet. The man with bloodshot eyes calmed down, silently dragged his gun back from his friend, and followed Jiang Chen. "Gang?" Ma Zhangchen stared blankly at Zhao Gang. He wanted to drag him back. "I am a man." Zhao Gang left without turning his head. Although his son died, his wife should still be alive. He must do everything to save her. "I am a man." The harsh words echoed in everyone's head. Their passion has yet to die, but when they realized they were only calculating the losses and gains, the look of shame appeared on everyone's face. "Ma sir, I am also a fucking man." He spat on the ground. Ma Zhangchen grabbed the rifle and followed. If there was a first, there was a second. When courage becomes a force, the fear before turns into anger. There was nothing else to say. The massive force once again began their journey. There was no need to threaten them this time. He looked back at the team behind him, as a trace of a smile appeared on his face. After this battle, the Fishbone's authority would not be challenged anymore. Every single street in the area would become the walls of Fishbone, and he will become the new king of Kingpu, king of his new reign. Chapter 106, Experimental School. I didn't expect people to come, Sun Jiao said in disbelief. Expected, Jiang Chen said in a sluggish tone, but it did surprise him that so many people showed up. Sun Jiao rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen and didn't respond. There was a total of 59 people following them after the incident occurred. They were all worried about their homes. So, most of the survivor groups decided to let half of the people take the crystals with them home, while the others took their rifles and ammo to help. The plan was for the Fishbone Force to be the primary force, as the power armor has a huge advantage against light weapons. Ma Zhangshan led 8 people as the second unit to attack the corners where power armors would not be able to hit. Also, they would act as the defense against the anti-armor weapons. The remaining 50 people were split into 2 groups, surrounding the experimental school from the west and east. There was no need to attack as they only needed to take cover behind the building. If the primary force received too much resistance, then they only needed to pretend to attack to distract the enemy. If they escape, they can then cut off their escape route. Jiang Chen led the primary force along the street. They were getting closer to the Huizhang mercenaries' base. The sky turned into a dim orange as dusk approached, and the zombies started to become unsettled. The group, familiar with the situation, smashed the zombies onto the ground with their dagger to avoid any trouble during the crossfire. Songjiang area was not disturbed by the X2 virus. The zombies were still weak during the day, and there were no crystals in the back of their heads. The crooked experimental school sign was thrown into the corner of the street as the corrosion left its words barely visible. From afar, the metal frames were still visible, along with the barbed wall. It did not resemble a school at all. It looked like a dirt fortress more than Jiang Chen's mansion. Is there any more high-energy vacuum bombs? Ma Zhangshan asked Jiang Chen in an undertone. Those bombs were most effective against humans. No, it's hard to get those, Jiang Chen replied. Zhao Chenwu probably didn't even have a lot of those lethal weapons to begin with. While the bomb and the launch pad was not hard to make, the concentrated fuel probably was hard to come by. The ones he sold to Jiang Chen were probably the few remaining batches. Usually, survival camps would not start conflicts among themselves since the geographic distance was a hindrance, and also no one was interested in the land itself. The high lethal to human high-energy vacuum bombs were raided from a military factory now in shambles. Its uses were limited to deterrence in the early stage. Now, it was no longer necessary as their force and reputation have already been established. Zhao Gang stood silently on the side, his eyes locked on to the gate. The other 7 survivors were also spread out behind the cover. Prepare to attack, Sun Jiao ordered. She opened the armored truck, lifted the angry-looking Lin Lin out, and threw her onto the ground. Jiang Chen was quite intrigued in the bad-tempered digitalized human, and ripped off the tape from her mouth. Pay. You dare to? Just as she was about to go on a rampage, Sun Jiao glanced at her, and the once aggressive voice suddenly turned into a faint mutter. Seeing that Lin Lin was quiet, Sun Jiao didn't bother with her anymore. She then took out the 72 anti-tank cannon. This thing was a destructive beast. Anyone hiding behind the cover would get blown apart. Lin Lin trembled as she saw the vicious-looking long barrel in the devil's hands. Her teeth were clearly chattering. Don't worry, that thing is too long for you. We won't use it on you. Her frightened look made Jiang Chen tease her more. Sun Jiao rolled her eyes, and then threateningly aimed the barrel in Lin Lin's direction before aiming the barrel forward. Lin Lin was scared to death by her action, but because she was tied down, she could only shake her body, unable to run. Don't be nervous. We just want you to see what the world is really like. Jiang Chen said casually as he stood beside Lin Lin. He took out a dagger to cut the ropes around her body. He then said, with a smirk in his voice, into Lin Lin's ear, "You better not bother Sun Jiao. When she is angry, she even ties me up." Sun Jiao gave Jiang Chen a dirty look as she rebutted in the private channel. "Am I that violent?" "Yes, normal people would not tie up someone they've just met." But Jiang Chen only said that in his mind, or else it would have been an endless argument again. "Prepare for battle. Oh, even if we untied you, it is safer for you to stay in the armored vehicle. You can look outside through the camera." He estimated that the two teams surrounding the experimental school should be in place. So, he ordered the power-armored soldiers to quickly engage in battle stance and prepare to attack. "I feel something is off," Ma Jiangchen, who had kept his silence, spoke out abruptly and then stared at the direction of the door with a frown on his face. "No one is guarding. We are already this close, and they don't have any reaction at all." "That's how I feel too. It is a ritual to leave a guard at the bandits' base." Sun Jiao peeked out of the cover with her feet locked to the ground and aimed the barrel at the thick metal gate. She then turned around and looked at Jiang Chen. "Engage." Just as she finished her sentence, there was a massive explosion from afar. "What's happening?" Jiang Chen was at a loss. Did the surrounding team expose themselves? "Fire attack, can't wait anymore." Jiang Chen immediately ordered an attack. "Roger, attack commences." Sun Jiao calmly pulled the trigger. Boom! The orange flame fired out as the bomb smashed into the metal gate 400 meters out, leaving a violent explosion. The shell of the bomb dropped onto the ground. Sun Jiao didn't stop as she stabilized the cannon and fired another round. Boom! The metal gate was blown out, and Jiang Chen immediately led the power armor soldiers to charge. Ma Jiangchen also commanded the light infantry to join in the fray. The armored vehicle followed as the vicious 20 machine gun pointed directly at the gate. "Attack commences." Sun Jiao unlocked her feet to the ground and moved along with the anti-tank cannon. But unlike their expectation, resistance did arrive. The gunshots in the distance still continued with an occasional explosion, but it did not seem to come from the west or the east. The power-armored soldiers led the charge, followed by the light infantry. "Quick, get in there. No enemy unit. Requesting order." Jiang Chen stood outside of the gate as he began to frown at the reports from the public channel. No defense at the gate, battle in the distance. Did the Huizhang mercenaries encounter strong enemies that they must focus all their firepower there, and could not defend their gate anymore? Who could it be? "Enter the main building, fire at will." Sun Jiao ordered the forces and then signaled the light infantry. "Roger." There was no resistance at all. Everyone entered the main building without firing a single shot. The armored vehicle slowly drove in. The gate was closed to prevent the zombies from entering. It was starting to turn dark. The gunshots in the distance still made Jiang Chen uncertain. But he thought that regardless of who the victor was, they still must come here. So it would be a good idea to build a defense line and wait for their attack. Shredded papers and rock debris scattered on the ground. The cracks on the walls and stairs were telltale signs that the place was impacted by the nuclear blast. No one cleaned this place as everything was kept the exact as before the war. If it weren't for the 2 piles of poop, along with the dried blood in the corner, Jiang Chen would have questioned if anyone lived here at all. 1-2 head to the roof to patrol. 306 search each building. Don't miss any corners. Light infantry and 7-8 establish a defensive line on the first floor. Fire at will at sight of the enemy. Sun Jiao calmly gave out orders. Yes, everyone rapidly mobilized. The gunshots seemed to be from the back of the experimental building. As a few explosions were mixed between the sounds, the firing was beginning to intensify. "Sun Jiao, are you familiar with the forces in Songjiang area?" After thinking for a moment, Jiang Chen abruptly asked. Sun Jiao shook her head. "Not sure. I did pass Songjiang when I was going to the mansion, but I would avoid the places where there were obvious signs of humans. Large, Safe survival camps like 6th Street are rare, and I marked them all on the map I downloaded from Liuding Town. Other than that, any other places with humans have the possibility of being a bandit gathering. Oh, hopefully the force fighting against the Huizhang mercenaries are on good term with us. Jiang Chen pondered in his mind. The first thing is to control the building and establish a line of defense. After a victor is decided, one party would approach this place. If it is the Huizhang mercenaries, then fire immediately. If it's the other force, then decide based on their intention. This is 3. There is a situation in the basement. The situation is unique. The voice transmitted from the public channel. Roger will head right down. Sun Jiao looked at Jiang Chen. IHaveAMansion. Jiang Chen nodded, took out the tactile rifle ideal for compact enclosures, and followed her towards the basement. The wall in the hallway was drawn with weird graffiti. The bright colors and dark wall formed an odd contrast. When he passed a classroom, Jiang Chen saw the chairs and tables thrown in the corner through the window, along with the cracked screens at the front of the classroom. There were 2 messy sleeping bags and a polyethylene digital table on its side. Blood marks were on the ground, but it looked like it was from a long time ago. If it was not so messy, the classroom looked similar to what he saw in the virtual reality training chamber. I heard that before the war, they liked to group the kids together to teach. I really don't understand the purpose of it. Sun Jiao glanced at the classroom and mumbled. Group the kids together. Jiang Chen paused for a minute when he heard the voice from the private channel. He couldn't help but smile. I am not going to say I don't understand. Sun Jiao did receive virtual reality lesson when she was in the survival base. Oh, the virtual reality training system allows necessary knowledge to be understood in a short period of time. If something can be learned in 1200 hours, what's the point of taking 12 years? Sun Jiao curled her upper lip contemptuously. Are you jealous right now? Jiang Chen laughed. Shut up. Sun Jiao pouted as she kicked the debris up and turned around to give him a dirty look. Although they were wearing helmets, Jiang Chen could still imagine her expression. Maybe it was to enjoy the process. She wouldn't understand because she spent her childhood in a survival base. Now to think about it, although he always complained about graduate school, when that moment finally came, Jiang Chen admitted that he did look forward to graduation. But after stepping into the real world, he still felt a longing for the times in the past. Maybe that was the happiest time. No office politics. Even if there was a fight, the next day everything will be back to usual. Even if the teacher was mad, the only consequence was a lecture and not losing the bonus, though he didn't need to worry about that now. Enjoy the process. What's the use of that? Jiang Chen couldn't tell if the voice was full of longing or contempt. Not a lot of use, just like how someone turned the world into this mess. Not a lot of use. Jiang Chen glanced at the teacher's office along with the way it was also a mess inside. I don't understand, Sun Jiao murmured. To put it in simple words, if you can meet some interesting friends in school, you learn to deal with people. IHaveAMansion. If you received that type of education, you wouldn't tie me up during our first encounter. Do you want to die? Stop remembering that. Sun Jiao's face turned slightly red as she complained cutely. Jiang Chen smiled. He only wanted to tease her. At the end of the hallway was a metal door. The lock was cut by the welding device on the power armor. There were a few words written. Fallout facility. Was it because of the escalated tension back then? Jiang Chen remembered that the school in the modern world didn't have those. If possible, could you take me there, from your side? Before they entered the door, Sun Jiao quite abruptly opened her mouth. He blanked for a moment before a genuine smile appeared on his face. IHaveAMansion, of course. Chapter 107, Bandit's Toy. A moldy smell swept across their face. Maybe it was Jiang Chen's illusion, but he even smelled a pungent, disgusting odor. Air filter activated. Now it feels much better. I can guess what this place is, Sun Jiao suddenly said. Oh, what place? A place to store their trophies. Her voice was calm, without much fluctuation, but Jiang Chen could still hear the disdain she tried to cover up. The plastic walls were well insulated as the temperature in the basement was slightly higher than outside. The lamps on the side of the hallway provided the lighting to the place. The place still had electricity. Seeing that the boss and captain came down, the three soldiers in power armor in front of the basement door saluted. "What's going on?" Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows but realized instantly. It was living hell. The room previously used as a fallout shelter was completely remodified. The polyethylene door was attached with a massive lock. The people captive inside the room could be seen through the tiny window. That's right, kept like cattle. The soulless naked woman sat there. Jiang Chen couldn't tell if she was alive or not. The white stains and the dark bruises and scars on her body made it hard to fathom the pain she experienced. There were at least 100 rooms like this. Each door had a number. Some rooms were empty with only dried blood inside. Some rooms had multiple people inside. Beautiful, ugly, able-bodied or disabled, body-modified or tattooed with heinous words. Jiang Chen looked away as he could no longer stand the scene. The number on the door should belong to a bandit, and they should keep the keys there. The people or things inside are their trophies or sex toys. They usually kill them once impregnated, or purposely impregnate them to unleash their monstrous desire, Sun Jiao said emotionlessly. You do know quite a lot. Jiang Chen took a long breath of air and said in a troubled voice. Common sense on the wasteland. Sometimes you are really charming. Sun Jiao suddenly looked playfully at Jiang Chen and smiled. Haha, my pleasure. He forced a laugh because he was not in a delighted mood, and he continued to walk emotionlessly. What the fuck, there is a man inside. Jiang Chen took a few more steps before looking at the door in disdain, and moved away. Some weird fetishes here. The man inside seemed to have noticed the noise outside. He opened his wry eyes and looked outside. In a glimpse, as if he suddenly got a burst of energy, he smashed the door to draw the attention of Jiang Chen. Wait, you are the enemy of those bandits, right? Can you let me out? Seeing that the man in power armor turned around to look at him, Chu Nan gulped and said rapidly. My name is Chu Nan, an ex-pilot at Liuding Town. I was captured by these bandits a month ago. Virgin Chu Nan, Jiang Chen held in his laughter. Liuding Town, then how did you fly here? Sun Jiao was surprised. Mission failed, Chu Nan answered in awkwardness. Jiang Chen opened the helmet and examined him with a weird look. Why did the bandits put you, a man, here? Chu Nan paused for a moment and then forced a smile. I don't know, maybe sell me for a good price, but Liuding Town definitely doesn't lack pilots. Jiang Chen paused for a moment as well and then smiled. My name is Jiang Chen. I also don't need pilots. Once the battle is over outside, we'll let you go. There would be too many variables if he just let him go now. Since it was already dark outside, he would have to wait till tomorrow. Anyways, there was no difference in letting him go now or tomorrow morning. Give me a gun, I can still fight. I can help you guys. Chu Nan gulped as he proposed to Jiang Chen. No need. There was no need to add variables to the battle. An extra light infantry would not change the battle. Jiang Chen shook his head as he prepared to walk forward. Can you give me a nutrient supply? I haven't. An instant noodle smashed precisely into the window. Jiang Chen said in annoyance. I am not in the best mood right now, so you better shut up for a while or I will forget to open the door tomorrow. Quiet now. The crisp sound of instant noodle and chewing transmitted through the door. Jiang Chen curled his mouth up as he was prepared to move forward. Dong dong. At that moment, the abrupt smashing of a heavy door was heard. A monster-like vicious look passed through the tiny window. A rather beautiful face was revealed, spiteful and twisted. He looked at her in shock, as it was the first woman he saw that still had energy. Sun Jiao was even more shocked. She opened her helmet and walked up to the door in disbelief. You know her? Jiang Chen looked at her astonished, and then glanced at the monster wanting to jump away. A bitter smile appeared on Sun Jiao's face. Somewhat, Her name is Josiah Oxia, my old friend at Liuding Town, or just an acquaintance. She was a lone wolf with a skilled dagger and pistol skills. We teamed up together before, temporarily. Then how did she? Captured, tortured on a daily basis, and finally lost her sanity. She probably has gone insane already. Sun Jiao reached her hand out, but just before she touched the door, the woman leaped at the door like a malicious animal, viciously flashing her teeth. She retracted her hand. Jiang Chen gulped lightly. Is this the fate of a lone wolf wandering in the wasteland? So, the filthy lone wolves on the wasteland are usually old virgins, because once captured, you'll never be human again. Sun Jiao suddenly smiled. She pulled out the tactile rifle and aimed into the small window as she quietly looked at the monster-like pupils. Jiang Chen noticed her hands were shaking. Do you need my help? He asked gently. Even for people who were accustomed to killing, they have people they were unwilling to pull the trigger on. He kind of understood the feeling where she wanted to end her companion's pain, but unable to do so because of past interactions. Sun Jiao thought for a moment and then smiled. It's okay. Boom! A massive explosion suddenly diffused inside as the ceiling began to shake. The lights were flickering. This is 7. We are under attack. They are equipped with heavy firearms requesting assistance. The explosions continued to transmit from the surface. The soulless women in the cages were even alerted and twitched. 1, 2 provide cover fire on the roof. 408 search for cover and return fire. Sun Jiao calmly ordered in the public channel. Damn it, who is the enemy? It's definitely not the Huizhong mercenaries. They don't have such intense firepower. Chunan leaned against the door as he quickly explained. The look in his eyes seemed to plead for Jiang Chen to let him out first. It's the mutated human. It's the mutated human force. Damn it, how did we encounter these things here? Angry shouts transmitted from the communication channel. The intensity of the battle could be deduced from the shaking blast. The situation was critical as Jiang Chen did not bother with Chu Nan's plead. He dashed directly to the stairs and signaled Sun Jiao and 3 to follow. Sun Jiao glanced at the Josiah Oxia, flashing her teeth at her, and put down the rifle. She didn't say anything as she silently left the basement. She didn't pull the trigger. Damn it! Chu Nan smashed the door as he witnessed the group of people leave the basement. He could only pray that the man called Jiang Chen wins. At the same time, he suddenly noticed that the monster-like woman was staring at him. He abruptly remembered the hardcore pawn scenes yesterday. The bald Zhou Guoping took his pawns, lined them up, and then pressed the Bith-like woman against the wall. They cursed derogatory words while they... To be honest, he was hard. Chu Nan shook his head as he wearily sat on the bed. To his surprise, through the tiny window, he noticed that the woman was also smiling. He suddenly felt his throat being stuffed. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. When the person in the power armor said her name, he already realized who she was. However, in the month he was kept here, he didn't recognize her at all. Speaking of this, she hasn't visited Liuding Town for a while, since last winter. Josiah Oxia was known as the Devil Hunter, the screw bars goddess at Liuding Town. She would always have a drink there when she passed by Liuding Town. There was a lot of people thirsty for her beauty, but none picked the rose with thorns. But now the charm was covered by filth, and the audacious yet gorgeous face had lost all of its liveliness. Damn it, he did fall in love with her at first sight. Chapter 108. The Mutated Humans. The mutated humans, like the cannibals, was another species not accepted by humans. A giant figure, strong muscles, an ugly, twisted face and grayish-green skin, just like the monsters from Lord of the Ring. The FEV virus in their cell structure had given them an insane regeneration ability. From some perspectives, they could be considered immortals unless they asked for their own death. At the same time, the ferocious FEV also made them immune to any diseases and free from the risk of radiation. They boast themselves as the perfect human and praise that the heaven-like wasteland belonged to them. Of course, the above was not the reason they were hated. There were plenty of arrogant, ugly people, and with enough radiation dust, the head was bound to become abnormal. The survivors disdained them because they were dickless. Not only that, they liked to capture people and turn them into the same dickless creatures they were. The inability to reproduce was their only flaw. Also, because of the limited lifespan of their DNA. Despite a higher regeneration rate, which means the cell division was occurring at an abnormally high rate, this resulted in a shorter lifespan. They would rarely age but would experience a violent death in their 50s. The more injuries they've had, the shorter their lifespan. If they wanted to continue their species, they must capture people on the wasteland and put them in a vial and pickle them to turn the captured people into the same ugly, mutated humans as them, regardless of gender. To increase efficiency, they would force breed the males and females. The newborn baby would then be turned into mutated humans as well. They would then raise the newborn and repeat the same reproduction cycle. This inhumane act was even more obnoxious than killing people. Obviously, people would rather get their heads chopped off than their dicks chopped off. So naturally, the mutated human was top of the blacklist on every survival camp, the 6th Street included. These dickless things were the arch enemy of all humans. Even if they couldn't conduct trade with other survivors, they still lived a comfortable life. Nutrient supply. They could produce it, but they rather not eat those things. They hunt for mutants and then eat the highly poisonous flesh raw and use their insane immunity system to process the poison. Even the disgusting ration they could feast like its flesh was a delicious meal. Firearms. They were born in the underground military facility. Because of the involvement of the government, the military did finally receive freedom. They controlled the entire military base and was considered the organization with the amplest amount of firearms in Wangai City. It was true that based on the adaptability of this world, they had the right to be arrogant. If it were not for the fact that they couldn't reproduce, they would have without a doubt conquered the world. But Jiang Chen was facing these lunatics right now. Damn it, their firepower is too strong. Jiang Chen tightly pressed behind the cover as he could barely gather his breath due to the oppressing fire from the heavy machine gun. 400 meters out, whoever had the more intense firepower was the daddy. The grayish-green colored mutated humans were wrapped in ammo. The revolving machine gun furiously unleashed its power on the main building. Their muscular body enabled them to fire the heavy firearm without being disturbed by the heavy recoil. Without the need to wear kinetic skeletons to increase their weight, they could use their pure strength to wear the almost 1-ton plastic steel armor. If it were not for the exposed joints uncovered, the light weapon would practically cause no harm. Fuck, it's the mutated humans. Sun Jiao's face looked troubled. She carried the 72 anti-tank cannon and leaned behind the cover. These heavy machine guns could already pose a threat to the power armors. The intense waves of bullets forced them to take cover. Both feet locked onto the ground changed into AP bombs. She reached out of the cover and immediately fired. The bomb with a trail of orange fire scattered across the sky as it smashed right into a mutated human. The AP bomb, without a doubt, penetrated the armor and ripped the mutated human into pieces. The effect was visible when they realized that the opponent also possessed heavy weaponry. This caused the mutated humans to become more cautious with their attack. The only downfall was they began to focus their fire in Sun Jiao's direction. Sun Jiao unlocked her feet as she initiated the turbine engine and barely avoided the rain of bullets. The ferocious firepower from the machine gun almost shredded the wall she took cover at into pieces. Damn it, do their bullets not cost money? Jiang Chen gritted his teeth. He leaned against the wall and continued to shoot while constantly taking cover behind different barriers. Fuck, why are they focusing on me? Sun Jiao dragged the 2-meter-long cannon as she awkwardly hid behind the stairs, unable to peek out. Other than heavy machine guns, they also possessed at least 4 recoilless cannons. Their firepower was not on the same level. The only heavy weaponry on Jiang Chen's side was the 72 anti-tank cannon. Although the revolving heavy machine gun was powerful, because the other side had already suppressed their fire, it is hard to regain the control. There were at least 20 mutated humans with machine guns. Should we drive the armored vehicle over? The 20 machine gun could. Are you crazy? They have 4 recoilless cannons. Fuck, what to do? Sun Jiao bit her lip. Retreat, retreat, fuck, prepare to fight in the building. There was no time to hesitate. Jiang Chen decisively took control as he shouted in the public channel. Sun Jiao quickly realized the situation too. That's right, if they can't win in distance, then fight in close range. If the mutated human need captives, there is no reason that they wouldn't chase. Roger. The light infantry that was being suppressed on the ground by the firepower began to retreat. Then it was the power armor soldiers. The mutated human took the upper advantage in the first wave of exchange fire. There were 3 casualties on Jiang Chen's side, with minor injuries on the power armor soldiers. 2 casualties on the opposing side. One was blown to pieces by Sun Jiao. The other practically died because of bad luck. With the regeneration strength of the mutated human, unless it were shots to the head or heart, they would not die. It was already pitch dark in the night. Because of Jiang Chen's retreat, the mutated human began to cease fire. They couldn't destroy the building as their purpose was to capture people. In this case, they had to enter the main building to combat with Jiang Chen. A total of 31 people with 19 heavy machine guns, they are in the building already. After activating Fury, all the hearts appeared in his vision. Fury deactivated. He took a deep breath as his brain regained clarity. After the battle in the virtual world, he could already freely control Fury without the need of a tranquilizer. The only disadvantage of the ability was that the higher the number of the enemy targets, the more difficult it was to control his emotion. Once the violence was built up to a certain point, he could even lose control. Just like Sun Jiao's special ability would force her to be weak, these hidden genetic abilities were never meant to be the gift from the higher beings, but rather a curse to the unholy. The light infantry was completely useless at this point. Sun Jiao ordered them to retreat to the door. 10 power armor soldiers against 31 mutated humans. That was a large discrepancy. But would Jiang Chen play this game fair and square? The Fishbone base lacked a lot of things, but crystal was not one of them. Chapter 109, Tragedy. Enemy unit arrived on the 2nd floor. Fire. Roger. Dedada. In the darkness, fire sparks suddenly erupted as the mutated humans rushing into the hallway were caught off guard. The polyethylene tables and chairs were thrown into the hallway, as the power-armored soldiers used that to take cover and unleash their firepower at the mutated humans. The weight of the mutated humans' armor was mostly focused in the front part. Their intense firepower made it necessary to consider running away. But once the distance has been shortened, their fatal weakness was exposed. Although they were not completely unprepared when they stepped on the stairs, their center of gravity leaning forward uncontrollably exposed their defenseless backs to the machine guns of the power armor soldiers. Almost instantly, they experienced heavy casualties. Fire at will. Jiang Chen carried the tactical rifle as he gritted his teeth and continuously pulled the trigger. The mutated humans' charging momentum suddenly came to a halt. They began to lift their guns up to fire back, but shooting up was always a disadvantage as they were unable to return fire. Despite their muscle being able to carry the weight of the C-type plastic steel, it was too much for the spine. If they had to shoot up, that means their center of gravity must be shifted back, and all the weight will be concentrated on the spine. Nice job, how did you know their weakness? Sun Jiao said in excitement while she continued to pull the trigger. Would you believe me if I said I guessed it? He unloaded the empty magazine and smashed a new one into the cartilage. Jiang Chen aimed at the neck of a mutated human. Dada. The bullets penetrated through the neck of the mutated human, creating a splash of blood as the bullets broke his neck. He fell onto the ground like soft mud and stopped breathing. Despite the incredible body, they were still human after all. Even if they surpassed the limitation of DNA, they could not overcome the barrier of life. They have entered Area A already. We lost control of the left wing on the second floor. Noisy shouting was heard from the public channel. Retreat to the third floor, Sun Jiao decisively ordered. Roger. They can't allow the battle to take place in the hallway. Once one wing lost control, the other wing had to retreat as well. The revolving machine gun began to spin on the right hand. The left dragged the tactical rifle as the machine gun spat out a constant fire. They kept their fire suppression as they retreated. Once the defense line was compromised, they had to re-establish it on another floor. If they engaged fire with the mutated humans in the hallway, they would be the ones overwhelmed. Damn it, I should have brought some heat sensor grenades with me. He saw the power armor 21% damaged symbol on the full sensory screen as he cursed it in his mind. Who would have thought this crusade would be this problematic? Against the cold-blooded zombies and agile mutants, heat sensor grenades were practically useless. At this moment the floor violently shook. The explosion from the east side was audible even from the other wing. 3 is down. Damn it, it's recoilless cannon. Jiang Chen watched with his own eyes as the 3 number became crossed and marked with heart-ceased offline symbol. Although he didn't know the person's name, seeing that his comrade has fallen, it was an indescribable feeling. Although he was aware that there would be casualties in every battle. Retreat, retreat to the roof, Sun Jiao shouted in the public channel. They couldn't wait any longer. A T3 power armor was worth over 10,000 crystal, and if it was busted, then there was 1 power armor less. The mutated humans saw that they gained an upper advantage as they began to shout out in joy. They attacked the stairs roaring. Even if they had 10 people along the way, the 10-to-1 casualty ratio did not scare them because they firmly believed that once these metal junks were forced on the roof, they would turn into scrap metal under their firepower. The armor in front of their chest was comparable to the T3 C-type plastic armor. Technology, they didn't need it. Damn it, why do they seem to be on drugs? Sun Jiao clenched her teeth as the 72 anti-tank cannon launched repeatedly. The AP bomb directly penetrated the concrete stairs and blew the mutated human into 2 pieces. Initiate final plans. Jiang Chen met with Sun Jiao already as they took cover at the other end of the stairs. They leaned tightly against the wall as they shot with the tactical rifle. Bullets flew and carried the trail of faint gray smoke. But that is 5,400 crystals. Sun Jiao's face appeared as if she was about to cry. Enough, a T3 is 13,000 crystals. Sun Jiao clenched her teeth as she reluctantly made her last shot and shouted in the public channel. Retreat, initiate final plan. Roger. The defense line could no longer hold on to the 6th floor, but there were still at least 20 mutated humans attacking. They already abandoned their plan of just piling on bodies and began to act more cautiously as they continuously fired the recoilless cannons and self-made grenades. The saving grace was that, while they had almost an infinite amount of bullets, their grenades and bombs were limited, or else there was no way this battle could be fought. Finally, the mutated humans rushed onto the 6th floor. It forced all the power armor soldiers into the hallway. But at this moment, a scene the mutated human didn't expect happened. The metal junks all jumped out of the window as the turbine engine began to shoot out a blue trail of flames and carried them downstairs. At the same time, explosions began to erupt on the 5th and 6th floors. The hidden aluminum heat agent blew the stairs into pieces. They could fly. The stairs were destroyed. However, they had no time to react. Backup fuel rod self-destruction program. Initiated. Sun Jiao, in pain, pressed the confirm button. She regretted not carrying more explosives with her. How wasteful was it to use the fuel rod costing 500 crystals and 100 crystals to charge explosives. Boom! The red flames began to blossom in the air. The almost liquefied fire waves instantly emerged the entire floor and erupted out from the previously black window. He felt the waves of heat on the surface of his armor. Jiang Chen watched the blinding explosion, astonished. Although it was not the first time he used fuel rod as explosives, it was his first time witnessing this effects of the explosion. Beautiful firework, he subconsciously whistled. A firework worth 5,000 crystals. Sun Jiao was still bitter. Do you think that they haven't considered that we could fly? Jiang Chen asked as he watched the concrete begin to melt. Not all power armors are equipped with flying engines. Usually, only paratroopers would be fitted with the flying engine. The trade-off for mobility is armor. The B-type armor used by land mobile armors are much stronger than the lighter C-type plastic armor. At the same time, it weighs much more than the 300 kg T3. It usually weighs 1 ton. Also, the mutated humans are not known for their intelligence. The high temperature also ignited the plastic chairs placed in the hallway. The thick black smoke was quite visible even in the night. The power armors gradually landed, looking at the fire above them. There was no doubt about their victory. Sun Jiao carried the anti-tank cannon on her shoulder. B-type armor, what are these things exactly? Jiang Chen was curious. Material strength grade, SABCDEF, 7 levels in total. It is also used in other industries. It is complicated to explain. You don't know this after being here for this long. Sun Jiao rolled her eyes. Seems like you know a lot, Jiang Chen nonchalantly said as he glanced at the fire that was beginning to fade. The building was well engineered. Even after experiencing an explosion of this scale, the main structure remained intact. Common knowledge, Sun Jiao mumbled and then opened the public channel. Prepare to enter, group into 3s by number. Group ahead to floor 5 and 6 to search for any mutated humans that have not died, only leave one alive. Roger. They saluted as 10,203 carried their tactical rifles into the building. Team B, go collect the power armor on floor 3. Although destroyed, a lot of parts were of high value. Roger. Team C, clean up the battlefield at the experimental building. After finishing her orders, Sun Jiao opened the helmet and playfully threw Jiang Chen a wink, and then closed the helmet and shouted in the private channel, "Follow your sister." "Is your butt aching?" Jiang Chen said fiercely. He heard her giggling voice. "This girl is becoming more naughty." Bullet holes were everywhere on the wall. Jiang Chen's force left the ones on the north side. The south side should be from the encounter between the mutated humans and Huizhang mercenaries. It was evident that the mutated humans won. There were bloodstains everywhere, along with severed limbs and flesh. The pungent smell in the air and gruesome scene on the ground only made Jiang Chen slightly frown. Was it because he was used to death, or only because it was too dark to see? He would rather believe it was the latter. Behind the back door, there were 3 modified trucks parked. They were bolted with thick steel plates along with a heavy machine attached to the top. Quite a gruesome battle. Sun Jiao locked her eyebrows as she locked away a broken hand. "Don't those dickless things want it alive?" Jiang Chen asked. "Still alive without a hand. Usually normal people are just for breeding purposes." As she said this, Sun Jiao walked behind the truck and opened the door. Suddenly, Jiang Chen saw her stop. His heart started to ache, but he didn't have the time to open his mouth. Like a bomb, the figure was blown away. Roar! The roaring sound came from inside the truck, as it almost shattered Jiang Chen's eardrums. He couldn't hear any sounds at that moment. C-Team encountered enemies, requesting assistance. 8 quickly pulled out the rifle and began to fire. But the bullets seemed to have hit a metal plate as sparks popped up on the metal board, casting an unsettling feel. Jiang Chen, who was still trying to recover from what had happened, saw, with the glimpse of his eyes, the explosive and agile figure get blown into the air. Noise, color, everything in the world seemed to have escaped from his body. Heart ceased. Sun Jiao. His head was empty. In an instant, Jiang Chen's eyes were covered in blood. Chapter 110, Awakening. Death. There was intense pain, as though his heart had been ripped open. Scenes from his memory flickered like dusty old photos. The audacious and naughty, yet gentle and caring face began to yellow. Then it turned gray. The ferocious, mutated human roared and flipped the warhammer in its hand before facing Jiang Chen, whose mind had gone completely blank. It was fury, but beyond fury. Anger seemed to have broken a lock in his heart, shattering it. But his mind was clear and conscious. Kill. Kill him. Thoughts of slaughter. Roar. The explosive shadow dashed at him, the raised warhammer gleaming with a faint blue light. It was a power warhammer, equipped with a power storage system. It could release energy upon impact, and the damage was comparable to that of an anti-tank cannon, making power armor rather useless against it. Anger did not numb his thoughts. He never had such clarity in his life. His thoughts passed in 0.01 seconds, and the tactical flashlight in front of him opened instantaneously. The blinding ray pierced the pupils of the mutated human and deadened his vision. At the same time, the turbine engine opened, and he began to glide. What followed was a deafening screech, a challenge that smashed into the ground. Jiang Chen maneuvered the power armor and dodged the thunderous hit. He raised his right arm, and the machine gun with revolving tridents fired rapidly. Ta-da! Bullets swarmed out, each impact casting sparks on the mutilated human's back. The sound of the striking metal began to fade. The violent firepower did not damage him in the slightest, being reflected instead. Roar! The mutated human shouted in pain. He dragged the power warhammer up from the concrete floor, his eyes the size of bells shooting out a terrifying light. From the sparks and flashlight, he could see the mutated human's pitch-black back. A dark mutated human. Information from the database was displayed on his pupil. Lead skin, I don't know how it works, but... The black figure leaped at Jiang Chen once more. The warhammer smashed down like a meteor with 4 trails of faint blue light. The turbine engine at maximum output, Jiang Chen made a curved trajectory to avoid the attack midair. He then braked, sparks screeching out from the bottom of his feet. Without hesitation, he pulled out the tactical rifle and aimed it at the mutant's head. The second it turned to look for its target, Jiang Chen fired. Da-da-da. It was still ineffective. It had a ridiculous defense even on its head. With a fierce shout, the mutated human swung its power warhammer at Jiang Chen from his flank. There was no time to dodge, but his heart was devoid of any anxiety. He deployed the wheels on the soles of his shoes once more, while a nitrogen shield expanded outward like an umbrella. The power warhammer smashed through the thick waves of nitrogen and hammered on the front of his armor. Jiang Chen flew explosively, but with the help of the nitrogen shield, he was pushed out rather than ejected with great force. The T3 power armor weighing 300 kilograms was very light, and most of the impact was not absorbed by him. Instead, it was transformed into energy that helped him recoil backwards. The wheels turned rapidly, and after flying for approximately 10 meters, Jiang Chen calmly braked with a screech of metal on the ground. Boom! The power armor directly smashed into the first floor of the experimental building. He landed awkwardly in the hallway. Energy of impact, 494,000 joules. Straining, Jiang Chen raised his dazed head and read the stats on his pupils. Warning: power armor damage, 54%. The entire front of the armor caved in. The turbine engine on the left shoulder and left side of the waist were destroyed. The life detection device was damaged, and the communication device was malfunctioning. He silently glanced at the rows of offline symbols that represented the team, then at the jumping red symbol. Jiang Chen closed the notifications and pulled out the tactical dagger. Roar! The roaring sound advanced, as he had expected. It was clear that the gorilla-like monster was not ready to let its prey go. And neither did Jiang Chen. Like a gust of furious wind, the black figure raised the power warhammer and smashed it in his direction. Flames burst out of what remained of the turbine engines. Jiang Chen slid across the ground as though being dragged to avoid the power warhammer's hit. Finally, they stood up shakily. Rock debris had scraped the power armor, which clanked continuously. The turbine engines had exceeded their output limit and stalled, but it was enough. Jiang Chen, who had just escaped danger, did not back down but rather dragged the busted power armor and dashed at the mutated human. He then furiously stabbed his tactical dagger forward. Conservation of energy. He noticed a while ago that the second the mutated human raises its hammer, the muscles over its entire body seem to expand as though it was straining to perform the action. The warhammer itself was not heavy, but when it was raised, even the mutated human had to use all of its energy to do so. Although Jiang Chen did not know the energy principle behind it, his instincts told him that this was the key to the power warhammer's charge, as well as its weakness. The mutated human was struggling to raise the hammer, so it was unable to react to the attack. The opportunity was a small window of time. The sound of metal screeching echoed in the air the moment his dagger came into contact with its skin, leaving a trail of sparks. Jiang Chen clenched his teeth as his muscles expanded to the limits. The output of the power armor was also operating at its maximum. Roar! The power warhammer in the hands of the mutated human stalled and fell to the ground. He flung away the left arm that was stabbed with the dagger and smashed his fist towards Jiang Chen's head. Jiang Chen lowered his body to avoid the hit, then leaped at the chest of the mutated human. With power output at a maximum, both of his hands locked onto its shoulder. He clamped the roaring, fighting, mutated human against the wall. The misshapen face twisted in anger, and its red teeth that seemed as though they would pop out were even more gruesome. Energy remaining, 53%. Jiang Chen, also furious, had no color in his face. He looked at the energy bar and what remained before activating a red button. Self-destruction program initiated, 20 seconds remaining. The internal fuel rod began to shake as the stable contents became agitated. Feet locked. The metal strips penetrated the ground. Power armor released. A thin opening appeared at the back of the power armor, through which Jiang Chen jumped out. He met its frightening gaze with only grimness in his eyes. The pitch-black mutated human desperately tried to push the power armor away, but it was futile. The power armor was locked down and held him in its grip against the wall. His left hand was useless because of the injury, and with his joints locked, it didn't matter how much brute force he used. He did not budge. Jiang Chen walked away 100 meters and stopped. He turned and began a silent countdown. Strangely, he did not feel any emotional fluctuations. Hatred, fear, the joy of victory, or even anger itself. It was as though all of his emotions were stripped from his body. The fire erupted, and the blinding light covered his vision. He felt a slight pain on his face. Upon touching it, he realized it was blood. His face was cut open by the metal shrapnel. He quietly gazed at the blood on his finger. A bomb worth 13,000 crystals should be enough to blow that monster up. From the fire, a figure emerged. Flesh exposed, its skin was lit up brightly by the red flames which had already melted the lead skin. The daunting bloody holes were likely the work of the metal fragments. The muscle on its left arm had been nearly stripped clean. If it were any normal human, they would have been dead. The mutated human. Jiang Chen silently retrieved the 11 tactical pistol that he had on him for a long time. He aimed at the figure walking towards him from afar. He pulled the trigger. Bang! No reaction. The bullet may have penetrated his flesh, but it did not stop him from moving forward. Shots continued to be fired. The mutated human used its right hand to cover its heart, the damaged left arm to cover its face. The horrifying teeth could be seen from behind its fingers, and Jiang Chen could imagine the viciousness on his face. There was no time to run, especially since he never had the intention to do so. Fear? What was that? The mutated human was finally in front of him. Jiang Chen pulled the trigger, only to hear a faint clank sound. The bullets ran out. He lifted his hand, his hollow eyes staring emotionlessly at the mutated human. When all emotions had been stripped from the body, what would it feel like to face death? He suddenly thought of the insane intermediate artificial intelligence that had repeated countless experiments to obtain emotion. When it faced death, did it feel calm? Out of his peripheral vision, he caught sight of the giant hand being raised. Would he get squished? Jiang Chen lowered his head, removing the cartridge. Seems like I lost. At that moment, a homing noise almost shattered his eardrums. Boom! Oh! Flames exploded from the left shoulder of the mutated human before it could release its pained scream. It was blown onto the ground by the force of the bomb. The 72 AP bomb, with a power great enough to penetrate through steel armor, hollowed his muscles and nearly ripped every organ and muscle in his body. But even after this, he still had not died and made desperate attempts to stand. Jiang Chen was shocked. Not from the mutated human's ridiculous life force. He stared blankly at where the bomb had originated. Chapter 111, Another Use of Interdimensional Travel. Her heartbeats resumed. Seems like I was dead for a while, but how did I survive? There was no time for Sun Jiao to think, however. In her murky vision, she saw the mutated human walking towards Jiang Chen. Her vision was covered by dark blood. The entire front of her armor had caved in tight against her chest, and her left arm was out of commission from the broken plastic steel armor lacerating her flesh. The exposed wiring flashed with unsettling sparks, and on her pupils was a daunting list of red alerts. She would most likely have to cut off the entire left arm of the suit to extricate her broken left hand, but the ability should be able to heal it. Sun Jiao panted, her clouded eyes half open as she tried to lock her aim onto the head of the mutated human. Its heart and head were the only weaknesses. Boom! The 72 anti-tank cannon in her right hand fired, the cannon whipping upwards. The trail of orange flame directly homed in on the mutated human that was about to execute Jiang Chen. Made it. Seems to be off. Seeing it miss the weak spots, Sun Jiao raised her already straining right hand and aimed the cannon at the mutated human struggling to stand. She pulled the trigger. Clank! A bitter smile appeared on her face. The clip was empty. She glanced at her trapped left hand. A liquid, perhaps cold sweat, rolled down her blood-covered face. It was pointless if it didn't hit the head or the heart. Even with a broken left hand and half a stomach, it wouldn't die. It was not an average mutated human. It was a variant with lead skin. These mutated humans received special modifications that made their skin into lead. Not only did it make their defense far superior to the average mutated humans, but their strength and life force also far exceeded normal limits. Their only weakness was the lead-addled brain. They would kill instinctively, and so they were often used like dogs by the same species. The clip was at her waist, but how could she change it out with one hand? Damn it, Jiang Chen! Sun Jiao anxiously stared at Jiang Chen, her lips turning pale from biting it so harshly. At that moment, she could see the faint Jiang Chen looking in her direction. She is still alive, terrific. Jiang Chen's lips slightly trembled, feeling emotional. It was as if his heart was full again. Fury deactivated. No, it's not fury. Whatever, who cares? Jiang Chen turned his head to look at the mutated human struggling to stand. He met the ferocious stare. The flesh was healing at an unimaginable rate. The lead skin covering the head and chest had already grown back. Its threatening smile seemed to mock Jiang Chen. The mutated human could already sense that the man in front of him had no more tricks to play. Jiang Chen looked down at the pistol in his hand. Even the tactical rifle on the power armor could not penetrate its skin. The 11 tactical pistol would be futile as well. Out of tricks? No, there was still a lethal trick he hadn't used yet. Roar! The mutated human growled as he watched Jiang Chen approach. For no reason at all, he felt anxious. The head and heart were already covered by the newly grown lead skin, but when he saw the man walking towards him, he felt an instinctive fear. Jiang Chen drew closer to the mutated human and cracked a smile. Placing the gun in his pocket, he retrieved a crystal from the storage dimension. After the interdimensional bracelet's energy was charged to full, he flung the now lusterless crystal away. He leisurely squatted down, staring into the bell-sized eyeballs, then took a deep breath and smiled lightheartedly. "Should I take you to play in another world?" He slapped his hand on the mutated human's shoulder. Upon finishing his sentence, both of them disappeared from Sun Jiao's sight. Interdimensional travel. Sun Jiao stared blankly at the place Jiang Chen and the mutated human had disappeared from. She remembered the dead hamster. Living creatures were unable to travel with him. But she also faintly remembered that he mentioned it took 40% energy to travel once. What would happen now that he brought along the mutated human? She felt unsettled. The homing engine turbine began to ring from afar. Power-armored soldiers were rushing to the scene. They'd been caught in a crossfire with the remaining mutated humans. As soon as they solved the problem, they quickly rushed over. "Where did the light infantry go?" Sun Jiao asked in the communication channel. "Still at the gate." "Good, get me out first." If someone saw this scene, she would have to shut them up eternally. She was different from Jiang Chen. She didn't feel much guilt when killing. The power-armored soldiers walked forward, took out a welding gun, and cut through the caved-in metal on her left arm. Sun Jiao gritted her teeth as she crawled out from the back of the power armor, then looked at where Jiang Chen had disappeared. She began to feel more and more anxious, her uncertainty creeping into her face. Why is he still not back? "Captain, what do we do now?" "Stay put and set up camp. 1. Go take a tent from the armored truck and cover that area." Sun Jiao pointed at where Jiang Chen had last been seen. "Understood." The power-armored soldier with the one symbol on his left arm received the order and left. "The rest of you establish the temporary camp in the main building. We might need to stay here for a few days," she added after a pause. "Understood." She stared at the empty spot again as she bit her lips and clenched her fists. It was already the third day. Seeing that they were victorious, the surrounding team headed back, but some still remained. For example, Zhao Gang. "No, my wife is still underground." Zhao Gang could not wait any longer as he slapped his leg and stood facing the direction of the main building. The scared Ma Zhangchen immediately grabbed onto him. "Are you crazy? Do you not see how she looks right now?" Ma Zhangchen discreetly pointed at the figure sitting in front of the tent. The lifeless eyes were covered with permafrost. The lonely figure sat there quietly wiping the gun. It was not the look of someone who was open to conversation. Zhao Gang clenched his teeth but finally sat down hesitantly. "But just wait for a bit longer, brother, I'll be with you. Don't worry, as long as the people are here, she'll release them. They have some small internal situation." Ma Zhangchen desperately tried to tell his outspoken comrade. Instinct told him that if they were to anger her now, something bad would happen. It was not a small situation. 3 days already passed. For 3 days now, Sun Jiao sat in front of the tent. She silent wiped the SK-10 laser rifle in her hand. She hadn't used it in a long time, but she always kept it with her. She opened the EP, looking perplexedly at the hidden genetic code. Revive, repair critical organs, leave death state. Ability requirement, triggers when the heart stops beating and organ damage is below 50%. This God-sent ability saved her, probably reviving her when she died. But at this moment, she did not feel the slightest happiness. She sighed and closed the EP. The temperature difference on the wasteland was quite drastic. There was already a hint of chill in the wind. But even with only a light combat suit on her, she did not have any sense of temperature. How was Jiang Chen doing? She didn't know. What she did know was that if he were okay, he would come back immediately. But now, she uncontrollably clenched her fist, feeling the sudden moisture in her eyes. Damn it! That fist feebly smashed onto the cold, hard concrete road. Chapter 112, Overload. There was an excruciating pain, as if his body was being ripped apart. The burning sensation of the tattoo on his right wrist was especially unbearable. Thank God, he lost his consciousness not long after. Or else the pain would have actually driven him insane. He didn't know how long after the incident it was, but the soreness of his entire body returned. Urgh! Struggling, he finally opened his drowsy eyes. The first image he saw was a gorgeous face in tears. "You are finally awake." Aisha leaped from in front of the bed. Her lips trembled and the mists in her eyes shook, ready to fall at any time. "How long have I been sleeping?" Jiang Chen asked weakly. "An entire day and night." Her face had concern written all over it. He felt guilty, looking at the heavy eye bags on her face. "Wait, where the mutated human go?" As if a bucket of cold water had just poured onto his head, Jiang Chen scrambled looking around, but he couldn't find the mutated human's body. "Aisha, did you see that body? I hid it in the basement." Aisha lowered her head, lightly biting into her lips. She broke her promise with Jiang Chen. He had previously told her to never come into the room under any circumstances, but the loud noise from the room had woken her up. She anxiously approached the room, only to hear Jiang Chen's painful screams. She didn't waste a second to think before dashing into the kitchen, grabbing a knife, and shoving the bedroom door open. The next moment she saw Jiang Chen, who lay in bed unconscious and a disfigured monster. Never had she seen a more frightening monster. Its body was covered with severed flesh. The head and heart were covered in a pitch-black metal. "Is this thing even human?" Suppressing the fear in her heart, she approached the monster and placed her hand over its chest. There were no heartbeats. She gazed at the unconscious Jiang Chen and then at the monster that had fallen to the ground. She could tell that the two must have had some conflict. Although she didn't understand the absurd scene, she would always stand on her husband's side. Putting down the knife, Aisha forced down the agitated contents of her stomach with a deep breath before dragging the body into the mansion's basement. She then took disinfectant from the bathroom and cleaned the blood trail, careful as though covering up a crime scene. After taking care of everything, she filled a bowl with water and stripped Jiang Chen to wipe down his entire body. She couldn't fathom how he had become like this in just one afternoon. At least the still beating heart somewhat reassured her. Only after she finished did she bring a chair from the living room to sit beside his bed quietly, waiting for him to wake up. "Did you see everything?" Jiang Chen asked with a bitter smile. Seeing such a caring face, he could never blame her for coming in. Aisha nodded, then buried her head. "I am willing to give up my life for you if you wish." He lifted his hand and covered her mouth. Jiang Chen smiled at her surprised look. "I am not a devil, you don't need to give up your life. Just keep the secret for me." It was okay if she knew. Aisha would never leak the secret. With both hands outreached, Aisha covered the large hand covering her face. She gently nodded. "IHaveAMansion." He craned his head to look at the light in the distance. It was almost dawn. "Go sleep for a little bit. I want be alone to think." Aisha nodded with a worried look at Jiang Chen. She then left the room and closed the already broken door. Lying on the soft bed, Jiang Chen raised his right hand. All of the energy in the interdimensional bracelet was gone. He glanced at the bed lamp. After reaching over to unplug it, he stuck his finger into the socket. The light bulb in the room slightly dimmed, but due to the voltage limit, he only managed to charge the interdimensional bracelet by 2%. He breathed deeply and concentrated on his right hand in an attempt to open the storage dimension. Pain radiated from his wrist. "The energy wasn't consumed, so I guess that means I can't use it for now." Jiang Chen looked at his right hand thoughtfully. He'd been pondering this issue for a while now. If he forcefully grabbed someone to travel with him, then wouldn't it eradicate that person in an instant? But he never had the opportunity to test this bugged ability out since in the era of firearms, bullets served the purpose better. There was an other area of consideration, however. If he spent 40% of the energy traveling, then how much energy would it cost to bring along another person? The cost of taking someone alive should be different from taking a corpse. He recalled the last time carrying the hamster. It hadn't cost an excessive amount of energy. But this time with the lead skin mutated human, It completely drained the interdimensional bracelet. No, the real energy cost definitely far exceeded the 60% limit, which was what caused him to go unconscious. No need to use it against weak enemies, too costly against strong enemies, a bit useless in battles. He rubbed his fingers, which were no longer sore, and stared at the interdimensional bracelet on his skin. He desperately wanted to go back. Sun Jiao must be worried about him. But the bracelet was most likely overheated. Seeing as how it could charge, however, it meant it wasn't broken. Maybe it would return to normal after some time. Realizing that there was no use worrying, Jiang Chen shook his head and grabbed the EP from the table where it lay after Aisha had taken it off while wiping down his body. Username Jiang Chen. Body conditions: muscle strength 30, bone strength 29, reflex 32, brain cell strength 14, radiation level 0 safe, irregular status none. Muscle strength had increased by 5 points, bone strength by 2, reflex increased by 3, and the genetic potential was further developed. On Earth, this body condition would easily destroy superheroes like Spider-Man and Batman. If they existed anyway. Jiang Chen remembered the Sun Jiao had told him before that once injected with the genetic vaccine, the genetic potential would be somewhat unleashed. But to evolve to a stronger form, it could only be accomplished through life and death situations. That battle truly had been dancing on a knife's edge between life and death. He recollected that battle with a forced smile. A power armor, worth over 10,000 crystals, exploded. But what made his heart ache the most was not the crystals, but the fact that it was difficult to buy even with crystals. To help him, Zhao Chenwu had sold him all of his remaining units. Right, speaking of the battle that time. Jiang Chen suddenly remembered that after Sun Jiao had been thrust away by the power warhammer, the heart ceased. Symbol had shown up on the team status, spurring him into a state similar to fury. He opened the special ability tab in EP. Hidden genetic code. Muscle strength plus 35, reflex plus 40, brain cell strength plus 29. Special effect, battle instinct. Can grasp the situation and the enemy's ability in disadvantaged situations, ignore all unnecessary factors, and use previous battle actions to instantly carry them out at the maximum success rate. Side effect, emotionless. Time of duration, until the opponent dies or a trigger is used to cease the effects. After 30 minutes, it will begin to drain life force, and the effect will be reflected in the body afterwards. Note, once activated, Fury is forcefully deactivated. It was not Fury, but a new ability. Jiang Chen gulped at the skill description. Did the 3 question marks mean that the ability had yet to be named? This meant that nobody had activated this genetic code before. After pausing to think, he pressed the 3 question marks, opening up a dialog box on the screen. This means that it can be named. He pondered for a while. He really didn't have any talent in coming up with names. Suddenly, Jiang Chen slapped his head, as if enlightened before typing in Invictus. Invictus had the connotation of putting in a cheat code. The ability did seem unfair. After typing in the name of the ability, Jiang Chen read over the description again. Based on previous battle actions. That meant that if he had ever used a gun in the past, then he would become Hawkeye. And he had trained in all functions of the power armor before, so he can fluidly control the power armor without any hindrances. Jiang Chen mentally went over the battle. The combos he made had been perfect. Such mastery was definitely not something he could normally do, especially when he still had to look at the speed monitor when accelerating. The fuel rod self-destruction program was also an action he had used before. But why had he never thought about using the interdimensional bracelet to eliminate opponents before? He thought deeply before coming to a sudden realization. That was because he had never used traveling as a combat action. After experimenting with the hamster, he had never performed it during combat. Therefore, the ability's effect achieves skill mastery. Jiang Chen said with a troubled smile after peering at his hand. Using the interdimensional travel ability to kill should not be a problem, but it would be pushing the limits if used against a monster with a high life force. A mutated human had made him unconscious for an entire day, and he still could not use his bracelet. If he traveled with a Roshan or a death claw, some experiments indicated that his life force was proportional to crystal energy. He shook his head and put the EP aside, closing his eyes to rest. Sun Jiao was still alive. Her revive must have evolved from her tenacious ability. This must be how hidden genetic codes could be further unlocked. Speaking of this, as long as they used their ability, they had to bear the side effects from it. Fury made him lose consciousness. Invictus removed emotion. Then what was the side effect of the next hidden genetic code? For some reason, he felt slightly uneasy. Genetic vaccines had eliminated the barriers that constrained DNA, allowing humans to unleash abilities previously sealed. But was this really all right? If eliminating barriers was a good thing, then why was there one in the first place when humans first began to evolve? Only time could tell. And it was stupid to worry about an ability being too powerful. Chapter 113. Perhaps I should buy an island. Jiang Chen was lying on a chair beside the swimming pool, enjoying the last rays of the summer afternoon. Although he was eager to return to the other side to tell Sun Jiao that he was safe, the interdimensional bracelet was on cool down. There was nothing he could do about it, so he rested. The weather was becoming chillier, and it wouldn't be long before fall arrived. Thinking about it now, it had to be close to winter time in the apocalypse. Because of the radiation dust, winter in the apocalypse world came earlier than it did in the modern world. Going by what Sun Jiao said, usually by mid-October, winter would come to Wangai City, and it would rightly be called a nightmare. In 1 month's time, the temperatures would drastically drop to sub-zero with unnatural snow coating the city in an unhealthy white. Despite this, compared to the first few years, it was getting better. Based on documentations, during the initial years after the nuclear war, the entire world remained frozen in a state of nuclear winter. Only winter, no summer. During that time, the mutants chose to hibernate or migrate to warmer areas such as abandoned nuclear facilities or geothermal wells. The only ones unaffected by the harsh temperatures were zombies. Their bodies did not possess enough water to be frozen, but due to the reduced sunlight, their sleep times were also lengthened. Jiang Chen was deep in thought as he stared at the chilled orange juice placed on the table. It was necessary to have enough food, clothing, and fuel for the winter, but these were not difficult for him to procure. The coming season would not be too bad for the Fishbone base. There was obviously enough food, and winter clothing more effective than down clothes were sold in 6th Street. Fuel could be substituted by electricity, but overall, the levels of power generated and consumed would decrease in the winter, since with the outside temperature already at sub-zero, the fridge system in the basement could be shut down. What worried him most was the combat power of the base. From what he gathered during the battle with the mutated humans, the weakness of the Fishbone base was finally exposed. Ample money, but still too weak. With their power armors, they could steamroll through most survivor groups, but if they wished to expand, their opponents were not limited to small groups. Wangai City had so many forces to begin with. What about outside of the city, in the country? And what about the unknown mutants? If they didn't have the support of heavy weaponry, they would instantly be at a disadvantage upon encountering a military force of mutated humans. Even more detrimental was the fact that there was no way to replace power armors. This time, 4 of them had been busted while the remaining were damaged. Despite eliminating the mutated humans in the end, it was a terrible trade for Fishbone base. He did not expect a group of mutated humans to appear out of nowhere. After realizing the Huizhong mercenaries were in trouble, he had been ready to take advantage of the situation. But upon finishing off the mercenary group, the new opponents were not friendly and immediately opened fire. From the start, there had been no chance of a peaceful resolution between normal humans and mutated humans. He grasped the glass of juice and chewed on the straw, deliberating as he gazed at Aisha's body floating in the water. They lacked heavy weapons. Fishbone Base was too dependent on 6th Street, who was likely unwilling to sell heavy weaponry to them. At most, they would offer a heavy machine gun or rocket launcher. The only reason they sold them the high-energy vacuum bombs was because they were ineffective in most situations, useless against zombies, and easily intercepted by laser weapons. These items were limited to begin with since the production facilities were all but destroyed during the war. Weapons like tactical nukes and concentrated laser bombs were all raided from battlefields and half-destroyed military warehouses. Typically, possessing these sort of super weapons reflected the force of a survival camp. While it was important for Fishbone Base to possess its own firearm production line, they had to also think of ways to develop heavy weaponry. What gave Jiang Chen a headache was that he possessed the technology but not the production capability. Excluding production equipment, the two limiting factors to Fishbone Base's growth were raw materials and population size. Mining was impractical in the apocalypse. All of the sources near the surface were emptied. The major mining hubs on small subplanets and moons had been blown into debris. And though they did purchase some construction materials from 6th Street, after this crusade, their own production supplies would have become scarce, so who would be willing to sell to him? If he wanted to develop the industry, he had to improve waste recycling first. Because of the rapid advancement in material science, refining matter with page-long names was no mean feat. Jiang Chen knew little about the subject, but he did hear from Zhao Chenwu that 35% of 6th Street's industrial production was based on waste recycling, because although organic materials could solve some needs, bullets, bombs, and armors all depended on metal. As for the matter of population, even if they didn't have a complete production line, if they modified some equipment, they could partially create it by hand. This, however, required an excessive amount of labor. The spider tank, for example, required tens of thousands of parts to be assembled, and to use the small population of Fishbone Base to develop military tech. Zhao Chenwu's military factory alone had more workers. Could he produce some of the less complex parts in the modern world before moving them to the apocalypse? They had plenty of mining resources, and even if they didn't have the best skills, he could at least acquire some simple production equipment. Think about it, Jiang Chen wryly smiled and shook his head to give up on the idea. It was too dangerous. It was not practical in this country. Even if the workers didn't understand the purpose behind the spare parts, a factory without a stated purpose would very soon catch someone's attention. And if anyone happened to find out that he possessed military technology, the scenario was simply too beautiful to imagine. Perhaps overseas. Except Jiang Chen was of the mind that all crows in the world were of the same color. If they chose to follow their constitutions and laws, there was a chance that the country would not take action. But if it involved a giant of the military technology field, a massive conglomerate that came into prominence after World War II, they would not pass this opportunity. At this time, the country was willing to keep one eye open, but that was only until the military technology was on the brink of falling into the hands of their people. It was such a waste if he could not utilize the rich resources of the modern world. At that moment, Aisha burst from the water. Shaking her wet hair, she cast a pleasant smile in Jiang Chen's direction. Instantly, his eyes light up. It was not because of that. Island. Fuck, why didn't I think of it before? Jiang Chen slapped his head with a humorless smile. The only thing the apocalypse lacked was food, but in this world it could be obtained almost anywhere. And if work was hard to do domestically, then the situation would be different on a small, developing island. If he could simultaneously have a base in the modern world, it would greatly benefit the development in the apocalypse. There was no need to worry about resources and labor in the modern world so long as he could control a small neutral country far from international regulations. His heart began to pump at the thought. For a long time now, he had been searching for an option to fall back on. This was after he had introduced Future One and was asked to have a chat with the person whom he had saved. Of course, he could say this only in his mind, but once he came out from the Wang family's home, he had the intention of leaving. But the exact details had to be planned out. He stood up from the chair and began walking towards the mansion. Aisha swam to the side of the pool, seductive water droplets hanging onto her dark brown, curly hair. Her tender white arms leaned against the poolside. The look in her eyes asked, "Don't you want to sleep together?" Jiang Chen gulped uncontrollably as he took in the charm that she herself didn't know she exuded. This girl was becoming more and more attractive by the day. Her white skin was partially due to race, but also partially due to the nutrients in the training chamber. Thanks to it, the grease and the dirt under her skin had been washed away, and the natural pores of the Caucasian race contracted. After days of care, Aisha's previously stiff skin became as smooth as jade. It was no exaggeration that if Jiang Chen used the nutrient to open a cosmetic center, he would earn overwhelming profits. Not only that, but because of the genetic vaccine and the daily workouts, traces of abs began to show. With her perfect legs, the exotic charm became more and more seductive by the day. But what intoxicated him most was the gaze full of love. This bikini-clad, attractive figure flourished only for one person. Jiang Chen had the urge to jump into the water and play with her. But he still had many things to do, and those sorts of actions could be done later at night. Compared to before, he was much better at controlling his desires. Why don't you play by yourself? I have some things to care of." Suppressing his desire, Jiang Chen awkwardly smiled and hastily left the pool area. Mansion basement. Jiang Chen observed the mutated human's body. Taking a deep breath, he extended his right hand. The storage dimension could not keep living creatures. He had tried it before. Ants could be stored, but not cockroaches, only to be instantly killed. It seemed it would be impractical to kill people using the storage dimension. It did not cost much energy to store corpses in the dimension, and the energy bar had been charged to 10%. Jiang Chen tensed at the slight pain radiating from his wrist. "Fuck, don't you break on me." When there was still no reaction, Jiang Chen began to sweat profusely. After a short delay, the mutated human twitched and disappeared into the storage dimension. He let out a long, relieved sigh and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He glanced at his right wrist. It had cost 5% energy. He then used the remaining energy to remove crystals from the storage dimension before charging the interdimensional bracelet's energy to max capacity. It seemed that function had already recovered. Next was interdimensional travel. Jiang Chen initiated the ability. But soon his excitement was killed by the pain in his wrist. The storage function had recovered, but the travel ability did not. Too soon, he looked at his right hand, unable to do anything. But since the storage function had recovered, the travel ability should follow soon after. After taking care of the body, Jiang Chen went to the third-floor office and booted up his computer. He had to prepare his plan to purchase an island. Opening up Baidu Wiki and Google Earth, his eyes searched the Pacific Rim region. It didn't have to be too big. Even if he ran out of land later, the Apocalypse World had the technology to create artificial land masses. Only, the ocean was more frightening than land, so the technology was not well known among survivors. There was also no need for many people as it would be easier to control. If later he needed more, he could simply bring some in. An unstable political situation, but not too chaotic. The lower the GDP, the better. The poorer they were, the easier it would be to purchase the land. He would have to invest in it regardless. Ideally, they wouldn't have a dispute with neighboring countries over annoying things like natural gas or oil. He would eliminate those materials at any time. He didn't need them to make a living, and it would be troublesome to guard against thieves when developing in seclusion. Another important factor was that it had to be away from the 5 thugs, likely referring to the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. Finally, he found a small country located on Panu Island. It almost seemed made for him. A smile on his face, Jiang Chen called Robert's number. "Hello, my old friend, you finally remember your unlucky friend." Robert's glib tongue was in action on the other side of the phone. "I've been busy lately. Would you like to cut a deal?" Jiang Chen didn't bother with chit-chat and cut straight to the topic. Chapter 114, Play a Bad Guy for Me. There was a palpable pause on the other side, followed by a fake laugh. I'm no longer in the business, you know. I'm also on probation, so your words. That Lawrence guy will probably come to have a chat with me in a bit too." Hearing Robert's downtrodden voice, Jiang Chen stopped and almost couldn't restrain his laughter. The guy must not be having the best time right now. By probationary period, he probably meant that the FBA was monitoring his phone after telling him to his face, "I'm watching you right now." Showing off despite your current state, and you even said that you would have me covered when I head to Los Santos. He smiled but inwardly cursed. Jiang Chen shook his head and got ready to end the call. "Okay, looks like you can't do this deal then. I'm going to hang up." No, wait." The call disconnected, but his cell phone rang shortly after. He picked up mocking, "You switched numbers." Other than the fact that the phone bill is a bit more expensive, this number is pretty convenient." What business do you have?" "I heard you say you're a producer now, but from your tone of voice, it seems you haven't had the best time," Jiang Chen asked jokingly. He remembered that the gold deal had been worth around 500 million USD. With a 9% commission, minus the loan and other costs, he should have at least 10 million or more. Ran out of money already. It was in USD too. It takes longer for a movie to return the investment, you know." Robert forced a laugh. "Did you spend all that money on tail over there in Hollywood?" Jiang Chen chuckled. This pervert, there are definitely better ways to spend the money. But as that thought crossed his mind, his expression turned sour. He felt those same words applied to him as well. Let's talk about business." Robert awkwardly laughed from the other side of the call. Jiang Chen didn't continue to make fun of him, as he adopted a more serious tone. "You've always worked in sensitive areas, so you must be close to mercenaries." "Oh, do you want to hire mercenaries, but in Hua?" "Not in Hua," Jiang Chen interrupted. "I need your help hiring a group of people to train bodyguards for me." "Bodyguards?" Robert paused for a moment. "In that case, Blackwater International is not bad." "Not Blackwater," Jiang Chen refused right away. "You said before they're too close to the FBA. He finally managed to leave a circle of influence. There was no way he was entering another one." I knew it. You must be thinking of some bad things." Robert's ridiculing voice passed through the phone. He continued, "All of the mercenaries in the UA are all somewhat associated with the White House. If you want to find people who only recognize money, you'll have to go to Africa, the Middle East, or Eastern Europe." "Then let's do that. Make a trip with me to Eastern Europe," Jiang Chen said. "Not possible. If I go there before the plane even fully lands, I'll probably get deported. Speaking of which, are you not in the gold business anymore?" Robert forced a smile. "Gold is not grown out of the ground. Don't you want to do something big?" Jiang Chen abruptly laughed. The other side of the phone went silent. Jiang Chen didn't rush him. He knew Robert was debating with himself, but in the end, he would agree. Without taking risks, could he still be called a businessman? He was a risk-taker down to his bones. "Okay, you convinced me, but my instincts tell me that you may be crazy this time. I don't understand. You've been doing pretty well over there and successfully transitioned your business. Why?" "I have my own troubles, Robert, just like how you have your own," Jiang Chen said meaningfully. "All right, I understand. Now that you say it, it does make sense. Once SHT touches your hand, you can never wash it off, Despite stepping out of the business after Iraq, trouble seemed to always follow Robert. He spent most of the money, and though the producer title was pretty nifty, ultimately, it boiled down to money. With money, directors were more than happy to make friends with you. And without it, who gave a fuck about you? He did invest quite heavily, but he had no idea how much profit would come out of it. In the movie industry, he was a completely outsider. Then let's talk about your pay first. 20 million USD. Deal. Jiang Chen paused, then began laughing. Are you not going to ask me what the deal is? If I told you to go bomb a place, would you do it? With a sheepish laugh, Robert touched his nose and said, My friend, I trust you won't do things like that to me. If I did receive your money to plant explosives somewhere, you'd be in trouble too. Jiang Chen didn't deny it. Back to the topic. First, mercenaries. I don't care how, but I need 10 people with experience. The other side lapsed into silence. I'll get Nick to go to Kane. I have some connections with General Markinov. Although I won't be there in person, a recommendation letter should be enough. This guy really loves money. I'll make a trip myself, so get Nick to wait for me. Would it be acceptable to pay with gold? Of course, they only recognize gold and USD there. Secondly, refugees. Europe has many refugees, right? I'll take some of their burdens for them. Help me think because I need around 100 people. SHT, what are you trying to? I remember you said yes, Jiang Chen said casually. After deliberating, Robert let out a sigh of defeat. Okay, let me think. Where do you want these people to get off the boat? Africa. Okay, I think I get what you mean. Do you want to start your own mercenaries, or for the people behind you? I don't think you should know too much, am I right? Jiang Chen interrupted with a smile. Mercenaries, you are underestimating me. My fault, Robert forcefully chuckled. Suddenly, he remembered the last time in Iraq, Jiang Chen had brought out a drone and a heat sensor grenade. The organization behind him was likely something he shouldn't know too much about. IHaveAMansion, capture a trafficking shop in the Mediterranean Sea and get off at Libya, then go on land to Nigeria. Is Nigeria chaotic enough? This was the question Jiang Chen was most concerned about. Somewhat, it's poor enough there. A few $100,000 USD is enough to buy a plot of land from the chiefs and have them keep their eyes closed to whatever you do there. Robert laughed. Africa was a haven for mercenaries. Poverty provided them with a source of troops, and the chaos allowed them to pass freely between borders with weapons. Although he didn't know why Jiang Chen refused to recruit cheap people from there, Robert knew by now not to ask anymore. Great, then transporting them will be up to you. I'll take care of the other things. Is that all? No, one more point. Jiang Chen smiled mischievously. I heard you're a producer in Hollywood. Yes, I remember that you know. Robert was uncertain of the meaning behind his words. Play the bad guy for me. Your paycheck will be 20 million in gold. Jiang Chen laughed malevolently. Chapter 115, a blockbuster. Panel Islands, located in South Pacific Ocean, was near the equator. The sunshine made this place a great destination for a vacation. The tourist attractions were plentiful in the area: natural island, volcano lake, rain forest. But because of the lack of infrastructure, it didn't manage to gain much traction. On the entire main island, the most expensive thing was probably the international airport, which they borrowed the money to build. At this time, inside the not-so-busy airport terminal, two strange-looking foreigners walked side by side. Roger, do you think I will be famous? To be honest, I smoked weed when I was 13. I was in juvenile by 15. And then you got yours pounded by the black uncle inside. Who cares? The guy sitting in the Rainbow Mansion did far dumber things. Also, if you dare to use your Irish accent and call me Roger, I'll twist your head off. Robert stopped and turned around to look at the Caucasian teen fiercely. Sorry, buddy, you know I am just nervous. Johnny waved his hand, unbothered by his words, and continued. I asked the psychiatrist before. He said he had a phobic for being too famous. Shut up, you bastard, Robert cursed out. Johnny kept his mouth shut after he heard those words. He knew that Robert was not someone to mess with. In Los Santos, even the gang leader would give him some ground. Although he seemed to have exited out of the business, it was not someone a little pawn like him would dare to mess with. Whenever someone mentioned to him Irish, 3 words would surface in Robert's head: weed, alcoholic, poor. But right now, he must patiently entertain this dumps, because it has to do with 20 million USD. As to why he appeared here, it all started from the conversation a couple of days ago with Jiang Chen. Play a bad guy for me and 20 million will be your paycheck. I'll pay in gold. Jiang Chen stopped momentarily before he continued, on an island country in the Pacific. Robert paused, then his expression suddenly changed. SHT, are you going to? You are right. If you guessed it, then keep it to yourself. All in all, write a script for me and pick a good protagonist for me. I am going to film a blockbuster. Then an evil laugh was transmitted through the phone. He knew the laugh too well. Someone was going to have a bad time. You are crazy. Although I am a producer, I am more of an investor. Robert forced a troubled smile. He rubbed his temple and continued briefly after, okay, God, let me think. Where are you planning to film it? How much are you going to invest? 100 million USD, 1 year of GDP for Pano Island. The plot will be, a Los Santos billionaire came to Pano Island with the intentions of investing in the local industry. He began bribing local officials and taking a SHT on all the natives there. Okay, so that's the first movie's plot. Oh, I recommend the billionaire be acted out by a poor bastard bad to the bone. I need him to display his expressions after he suddenly gets wealthy. Haha, don't worry, there are too many of you in Los Santos. I'll wire the 100 million to your account. Robert paused when he heard Jiang Chen's words and asked with a perplexed expression, You are going to wire it to me? Are you not scared that I am going to run away? I trust that you won't. Honor code right, especially since I can get you out from IS. Are you still? I understand, that's enough. Robert faked a laugh as he touched his nose. We are old friends. Some things don't need to be said. That's right. You are a smart person. The money that's supposed to belong to you will belong to you. If this deal is successful, you'll have a lot more to gain from it. Aren't you annoyed with the FBA? I can give you a backup option. Robert heard the words and his throat twitched. He suddenly remembered a piece of entertainment, news, on the international section of the newspaper a while ago. December 30, 2014, Gambia presidential office was attacked by a militant group of approximately 10 people. The militants attempted to stage a coup. This bizarre event was the direct action of the Texas real estate businessman and a Minnesota veteran. They recruited people, bought weapons, and then transported the weapons through an illegal channel to Gambia. Of course, without a doubt, they failed. Based on their original plan, the action would not receive too much resistance. They thought the soldiers in the presidential office would not pose too much resistance in a dangerous situation like that. Perhaps they would even receive the support of some soldiers who decided to join forces with them. The result was that 3 of them were shot died right on the spot. There was no way to defeat them. In the unsuccessful coup, the Texas real estate developer businessman was the primary sponsor, and because they broke the neutrality law, the UA prosecutor sued him. He only sponsored 220,000 USD as he only wanted to be a president once. Now, Robert felt like he was doing the same thing. Except this lunatic was even more insane. He was willing to put in 100 million USD. 100 million USD to buy an entire country. Not only that, as well as the cost of mercenaries. Damn it, let me ask you, are you serious? Robert's fingers were trembling. He couldn't even hold onto his phone. It was not because he was afraid, but rather he was excited. He was an adventurer at heart. If he were to really be successful, then the small firearm merchant could make history. Of course, he didn't really care about the reputation. The key was still the profit involved. He had a feeling that if he could establish a connection with the force behind Jiang Chen, his return would far exceed his previous total earning. That's right, I think you should ask for a break from your friend Lawrence. I don't want the FBA to be involved again. The tone sounded light. Of course, I'll think about it. It is getting me excited. His finger constantly rubbed the phone as there was clear excitement in his eyes. I don't care if you are excited or not, I want results. Let me be clear. This movie can only be shot once. You have to consider it carefully, Jiang Chen said slowly. Trust me, as a renowned producer in Hollywood, Robert, will make you extremely satisfied with my script. IHaveAMansion, I'll have to take your word for it then, Jiang Chen said casually and then hung up the phone. There were already people waiting at the airport exit. Beside a limited edition, black Mercedes-Benz was a middle-aged white man with a beer belly, constantly checking his watch. He made the loose suit look rather tight. Beside him, an Asian stood there, appearing to be his bodyguard. On another note, in this small country with only a population of 20,000, the entire military was only 100 people. They occasionally had to play the role of police as well. Suddenly, the middle-aged man's eyes lit up as he saw Robert and Johnny walk out. "Oh, Mr. Robert, you are finally here. Haha, is this Johnny?" The white man opened his arms and greeted Robert with an amiable smile. He also looked excitedly at the Irish next to Robert. "SHT, is he gay?" Johnny asked Robert with his voice lowered. "Shut up, dumps. The shooting already started." Robert moved his head and cursed, but immediately changed into a smiling expression and walked up to the man. "That's right. This is Johnny, a billionaire from Los Santos." Just like old friends that haven't seen each other for years, they hugged each other and backed away. Robert turned around to look at Johnny. "This is Panu Island's president, Edward. British descendant basically from your hometown. Also acts as the finance minister and from your hometown was said full of malicious intent. As well as generally, my friend." Edward courteously shook Johnny's hand and shook it furiously. His face did not have any disdain for Irish people like usual Britons do. The reason why he would display this expression was purely due to what Robert had said. This Johnny guy was an Irish billionaire from Los Santos. No one had invested in Panu Island for a long time. There was finally a billionaire, so this fake emperor did everything to please him. As to being Irish, who cared? He only cares about the bills printed with Franklin's. After some small talk, the president invited them to get on his luxury vehicle and personally drove them to the mansion. Robert purchased it 2 days ago under Johnny's name. It was worth $500,000. Damn it, President, the finance minister general, what is he not? Seated on the comfortable sofa, Johnny counted his fingers. And Supreme Court judge, education minister. He would not take any positions without benefits. Don't worry about it. Do a good job on what I told you to do. Robert took a bottle of whiskey from the fridge, put it on the table, and poured himself a cup. "Nice, these is booze." Johnny, excited, grabbed it and poured himself a cup as well. Robert glanced at the alcoholic that gulped down the entire cup as he took a sip. Then he said, "There is a banquet tomorrow night. The local influentials will all be attending. Come with me, and I'll teach you what to do. The day after is an investing tour. You'll spend $2 million investing in a cargo port on the main island. Learn from me, see how I am stuffing the money, and establish a relationship with the officials." Robert continued. "Also, not long after that there will a hand merchant contacting you. He is an old friend of mine. He is currently in the food processing business. Help him a little. I don't think I need to teach you more." Gulp. "Okay, Roger. Speaking of filming, where is the cameraman?" "Buddy, we are shooting a movie, right?" Johnny burped with the cup in his hand. In a few minutes, who knows how many shots he had taken already. "Yes, we are filming a movie. This is the newest filming technique. You'll be part of history. Don't forget to build a statue for yourself in the city center, and the film team will do a special shot of it." Robert resisted the urge to laugh as he took another sip of the whiskey. "MHMM, in this case I only need to spend money." Johnny chuckled as he poured himself another cup. "This is a great job. What's the name of our movie again?" "A Billionaire in the Slum." Don't forget the piece that will make you famous. It's not only about spending money, but you also have to act as cocky, arrogant, and unbearable as possible, such as cheating on the neighbor's wife, seducing the woman in town. Just do everything you wanted to do. Los Santos, be yourself. Do a good job. If the reception is good, then there will be sequels. Robert leaned against the sofa as he mockingly looked into drunken eyes. "Burp sequels, what's the name?" Just as he finished the sentence, he dropped the cup and fell asleep. What's the name? A Kingdom's Destruction, idiot. Robert continued to mock and put down the whiskey in his hands. Alcohol, it's better to just have a taste. Chapter 116, Messaging Function Online. Note, Pano Islands is a fictitious location. After ending the conversation with Robert, Jiang Chen returned to the pool. Just as a smirk spread across his face and he was ready to jump into the pool and have an intimate moment with Aisha, his phone rang again. It was Zia Shiyu. It was not the right time. He cursed it in his mind as he unhappily picked up the phone. But when he heard the news from the other side, his unhappiness faded. First was from Future One. Because they were approaching 250 million downloads shortly after the software was available. In a few days, Jiang Chen was gone, and based on the marketing department's plan, Future One welcomed its first update. Now, the earnings were already evident as a result of the update. Rather than an update, it was releasing a previously locked function. The update opened up the community system. Everyone would acquire a random account after the patch. Other than cleaning the exquisite design, the chat interface had nothing special. To put it simply, everyone had an account that they could freely add friends, set up chat groups, and post statuses on. The functions were not unique as all the other chat program had it, but the one thing that made it stand out among its competitors were Smart Friend Search. Based on the user's description, Little White can accurately search for the chat partner based on the description. Of course, it was up to the user to decide on what information to make available or not. The user's personality was based on the data collected during daily interactions and analyzed based on a special software. The results were 97% accurate and would be hidden from the user and stored on the server's side. The personality only recorded positive traits and did not include negative traits, since no one would want to expose their weakness. The user could choose to publish these traits or reevaluate after a period, but could not change the traits. For example, if a man wanted a big-boobed, gorgeous, energetic, being able to cook, nice-to-parent girl, Little White would find it since the user base was already at 250 million, except that it would be up to the other side to add you or not. Even if you get rejected, Little White would suggest you lower the standards and improve upon oneself. If the random selection were activated, Little White would use Smart Setting to match friends with the highest compatibility. Apart from that, Future One also introduced VIP. Although it was similar to QQ's member policy, there was a slight innovation. Other than putting the red VIP symbol beside the user ID, it also introduced contribution system correlated with levels. There was a funny joke on Weibo before. The designer was driven insane. Suddenly, he jumped up and yelled, "I want to design a game with only two functions, pay and ranking." So in the end, the game was actually introduced, which was Bilibili's new anime sponsorship plan. IHaveAMansion. The innovation was replicated by future technology. 1 RMB equal to 10 contributions. 100 contributions would level up to VIP 1. To upgrade to VIP 2, it would require 1,000 contribution, which was equivalent to 100 RMB. Based on this scale, VIP 5 would need 100,000 RMB. To maintain the current status, 10 RMB would be enough. Not paying would hide the VIP symbol, but it would not level down. Other than that, there were also 10 Diamond VIPs that were granted automatically to the top 10 contributors. Would people actually pay? Yes. 2 days after the introduction of the community feature, there were 200 VIP 5 users born. The top of the contribution list was a coal tycoon with a contribution of 100 million. That meant he paid 1 million. Why would people be so willing to pay? Imagine this. If a beauty searched you, the first thing she saw was a VIP 6 or diamond symbol, what kind of reaction would it be? Or some would actually put a VIP limit on the search, prohibit anyone below VIP 3 from adding them. Showing off and bragging were common flaws of all humans, especially rich people that have too much money. They only needed to be recognized. The massive user base of Little White and the existence of the contribution system gave them the perfect platform to show off. Based on the backend stats, the guy at the top of the list almost had his friend request feature blow up. Although it was not Jiang Chen's intention, the pure little white became another great app for one-night stands after Momo and WeChat. Other than that, VIP user also had other exclusive privileges. For example, the invitation for beta testing of the mobile game New Era. It would select 10,000 users from each of the different levels. Therefore, the 100 million users would split 10,000 codes. The millions of VIP 1 would also split 10,000 codes. The VIP 5 users would each get one as there are only a few hundred of them. Do you want the invitation code? Then pay more money. This era-defining mobile game had a lot of expectation and hype. Based on the marketing department's research, on Taobao, an invitation code was propped up to 1,000 RMB, which almost broke the record for highest price paid for an invitation code. Of course, this design certainly caused some people to be unhappy, especially those people with ill intentions who hired internet armies to control the direction of criticisms. The only point was that it was unfair for so many normal users to split only 10,000 codes. That's unfair. We are going to protest. But those brain-dead comments did not have any negative impact on Future One, but rather it triggered angry responses from Little White's fan. Once it turned into a debate, it became a hot topic which was a form of free for Future One. When the people with ill intentions realized that the internet armies they hired did not create the perception they wished, it was too late to regret. Part of the success was because of Xia Shiyu's effort. When she discovered the signs, she immediately responded and hired her own internet army to steer the direction of the conversation. She perfectly used the tricks of the opponents to turn this into a successful marketing campaign. All in all, Future One's financial report was very impressive. Within 10 days of the community function, the company's net earning was 100 million RMB. The number would only increase with the continued operation of Future One, as well as higher user dependence. Xia Shiyu even confidently stated that within 2 years, she could break the yearly revenue record set by the member system of Penguin Group. The other area was the mobile game. After a period of marketing, the invitation code was already distributed to the market through Little White. Part of the invitation codes has been circulated through the VIP system, even if it has been circulated to people who didn't want to play, because it was not tied to the account. Third parties could purchase the code and sell it for margin. As to the code being propped to 1,000 RMB, even if they were not fans of New Era, they would be interested in the invitation code. If they didn't play the game, they could always sell it for money. There was nothing to lose. So naturally, it turned into another form of. Since the Little White user base already reached 250 million, those people would pay attention to the game because of the expensive invitation code, even if they didn't play the game. Within 2 months, Future Technology was already profitable. It made the venture capitals that were waiting for the opportunity frustrated that they missed the hen that laid golden eggs. They previously planned to wait for Future Technology to have cash flow problems before they opened their greedy mouths and took the company with endless amounts of potential. But who would have thought that Future Technology didn't lack money in the first place? Even Penguin had to beg venture capitals. When he heard 100 million in profits, Jiang Chen straight up told Xia Shiyu that he would use 1 million as a bonus. Unlike other tech companies, Future Technology's cost was insanely low. Other than the cost of labor and server maintenance after tax, the rest would be profit. As to research and development, what was that? Only a couple of cans of food. Seeing that you are working so diligently, should I give you a raise? Jiang Chen laughed. His mood was indeed delighted. Although the 100 million was nothing to his net assets, it was a good start. It was the first stream of clean money he earned. No need. My 1% dividend is already enough. From her voice, that girl was also in a good mood. It was a feat being able to accomplish this with a new team. After the 100 million equity infusion, she proactively brought up decreasing her share percentage. So after the change, her share in the company changed to 1%. Although Jiang Chen was surprised, he didn't stop her. Even if it was just 1% share, the 100 million profit this year was a lot. Because she was not the legal representative, there was a 20% income tax. But even after that, it would still be 800,000 RMB. 2 more months until year-end. With this year's profit, any dividend would exceed her current salary. Bonus and salary were meaningless to her now. Because it was work time, Zia Shiyu ended the call after reporting to Jiang Chen. It wasn't until now that Jiang Chen noticed that there were a bunch of missed calls. Starting from yesterday, there was a call every half an hour. After going to the apocalypse, the phone was in his storage dimension. He only took out the phone after calling Robert, so all the missed phone call messages came in. This girl, a smile curled up on Jiang Chen's mouth. Although she always kept a cold and serious face, she could be surprisingly cute at times. Aisha leaned beside the pool. Her mouth pouted slightly. The graceful and serene legs were moving through the water disinterestedly. She was not the type to get jealous, but for the phone call that clearly interrupted the intimate moment with her and her husband, it did make her a little unsatisfied. Jiang Chen threw the phone into the storage dimension before noticing the expression on Aisha's face. He smiled. He didn't even take off his clothes before he dived into the water. In Aisha's light outcry, Jiang Chen hugged the gentle and loyal girl with a smirk. Compared to before, they were no longer awkward. From her daily actions, he clearly sensed her love. To be fair, he did not have feelings for her in the beginning. He just somewhat accepted her. But because of her proactiveness, Aisha's love finally slipped into his heart. Her gentleness, her understanding, and her sacrifice were almost extinct in the modern world. Just by looking into her eyes, he would be melted by the love. He was uncontrollably drawn to her. It was time for him to be proactive. "Can you teach me how to swim?" Jiang Chen said with a smirk as he blew into her ear. Aisha lowered her head shyly, and then she put her hands on his wet shirt. IHaveAMansion. Chapter 117, Purchasing a Food Processing Plant. The next morning, Jiang Chen woke up from his sweet dream. He looked at the adorable girl beside him, sleeping as calmly as a cat, and his mouth curled up. Mouth slightly closed, graceful eyebrows, eyelashes gently trembling, and the somewhat messy hair. The porcelain doll-like white skin was cast with slight redness on her cheeks, and from her rhythmic breathing, Jiang Chen could hear a hint of tiredness and joy. It was a bit too crazy last night. Jiang Chen thought about last night as his face turned red. He didn't know if it was his illusion, but he felt that every time Aisha was treated roughly by him, she would be excited, especially with her hands pulled behind her back from the back. He awkwardly touched his nose, and then gently tucked Aisha in before quietly sneaking down from the bed. He hadn't cooked breakfast in a long time. Jiang Chen, satisfied, looked at the buttered toast and oatmeal with milk on the table with a great sense of accomplishment. "I definitely have the potential to be a great man," he narcissistically murmured. He then relaxingly sat beside the table to enjoy the breakfast. He still had a lot of important things to do, so he had to wake up earlier than usual. He cleaned everything up and left a sticker on the table before he left the door humming. He drove straight to the rural area with his Maybach. Jiang Chen still needed to do some preparation work for his island purchase plan. The sooner, the better. Robert probably started the plan already on his side. To be fair, he was even scared by his own plan. If he made a mistake by accident, he would enter the blacklist of the international police. But then he just needed it to succeed, right? Aisha opened her weary eyes and slowly sat up on the bed. She smoothed her slightly messy hair and stared blankly at the empty pillow. Her mind just zoned out for a moment. She didn't know why she fell in love with Jiang Chen, but the feeling was that intense. Whenever she saw him, her heartbeat would increase. Whenever he hugged her, her entire body would feel hot. She blankly smiled as she remembered last night. Suddenly, she woke up from her drowsy state. "Oh no, I forgot to cook breakfast." In her perspective, to be a qualified wife, she should put the prepared breakfast on the table before the husband headed out for work. Although it was not written in the religion, It was the family tradition from her mother's side. That's how she had measured herself. She knew that her husband was a great man, including the woman that came back with him on the car. He probably has a lot of wives. Even if she wouldn't get jealous, she still craved more attention. This included a controlled diet. She did not know the genetic vaccine improved her digestive ability. She didn't need to control her diet to avoid that extra fat on her stomach, proper exercise, to make herself look fit and charming. The nutrient was also marvelous, as it seemed to improve her skin condition. The only drawback was the awkward pee tube. She also worked diligently on housework. But she was too tired last night. Even when she woke up this morning, her legs still felt sore. That's why she slept in. She quickly got out of the bed. Aisha put a long white dress shirt on her gorgeous figure and then ran downstairs with her legs exposed. However, she was disappointed. Jiang Chen already left. Frustrated by her own mistake, after washing up, Aisha grumpily came to the kitchen to make some food for herself. When she saw the breakfast already on the table, she paused. Her heart felt warm. There was a note on the table. The writing was really neat, and she could understand it with her hand level now. "I won't come home to eat. You don't have to wait for me. Take care of yourself. Jiang Chen." She put the notes in front of her chest as a flush of warmth appeared on her face. She suddenly remembered why. Because of this gentleness, that was what made her uncontrollably fell in love with him. Although he always gave off a naughty feeling, he always took great care of her. He didn't discriminate her because of her refugee status nor treat her brutally. Her hands subconsciously crossed her chest as her finger gently pressed the button on her shirt. "Dad, Mom, I am living a happy life in this foreign country. Don't worry about me." She grasped onto the note tightly as she prayed. Xinlong Food Processing Plant. The gray concrete wall looked relatively clean. The surrounding environment was not too bad either. Although it was small, it had everything in there. Just from the outside, Jiang Chen was quite pleased with the plant. He got off the car and looked around before he quickly found the person he was looking for. A middle-aged man squatting in front of the door, smoking, quickly stepped on the cigarette after he saw Jiang Chen. Forcing a smile, he came to greet him. But that smile was no better looking than him crying. The information said he was 31 years, but the 180 cm man has a hunched back like a 50-year-old elder. The whiteness on the side of his hair and the engraved face was not because of the passage of time, but rather the misfortunes in life. "Jiang Chen, you should already have seen my information." Jiang Chen didn't judge this man too much as he extended his hand with a smile. "Zheng Hongji, owner of the Xinlong Food Processing Plant." Zheng Hongji shook Jiang Chen's hand and forced another smile. He then gave Jiang Chen a welcoming gesture. "Mr. Jiang, follow me to take a look at the plant." Jiang Chen nodded. Both of them entered the plant side by side. Jiang Chen noticed the dust on the production line. This place hasn't produced in a while. 2 canned food processing lines, an instant noodle line, and a cookie line. Our work was mostly in processing before, but no one wants to work with us now. Zheng Hongji's smile was bitter. He then led Jiang Chen to back of the plant. "This is the warehouse, including the 4 empty acreages of land. We previously had the plan to expand the plant, but now it looks like it is not necessary. I'll sell you the production equipment at 70%. We'll make it 300,000. The land and plant itself are a bit more expensive, 2.4 million, can't go lower than that." After finishing, Zheng Hongji stopped talking and looked at Jiang Chen's reaction. He estimated in his mind and nodded rather pleased. The price was fair, even a bit lower than the market price. He already asked the intermediary before. The plant's cost was around 3 million. This guy must have met some trouble with money, or else he wouldn't need to sell the plant at a lower price this hastily. Although he already decided to purchase it, Jiang Chen's eyes moved slightly. He didn't reply, but rather he gave Zheng Hongji a cigarette with a smile and dragged him aside. "Mr. Zheng, I am quite pleased with the price, but I am curious based on the construction of the plant. You are not the type to have improper planning. What made you want to sell your asset? Zhang Hongji didn't reject the cigarette as he skillfully lit it up. He blew a smoke ring. The just 31-year-old man had wrinkles squished together on his face, and he bitterly smiled again. Stock market. Although it was only 2 words, Jiang Chen instantly knew his sadness. Chapter 118, The Bankrupt Zhang Hongji. There is a famous quote in Fortress Besieged: "Marriage is like a siege. People want to go outside, people want to come inside." The same word would apply to the stock market without it being the slightest bit unfit. 5 years ago, Zhang Hongji was only an ordinary taxi driver. Because of chatting with a passenger once, he heard about the food processing industry. The slight drunk boosted to him how processing food made money, and at that time he was tempted. Being only 20, he didn't want to be a taxi driver for his entire life. From that point on, he started to learn about the unfamiliar industry. With the family saving as well as borrowings from relatives, he successfully purchased a poorly operated small processing plant. Although he didn't go to university before, because of his hard work and desire to learn, he used his learned-on-the-spot operation knowledge to expand the small facility to a large plant. Contracts flew to him like snowflakes. The canned food and instant noodles he produced were not only high in quality, but the price was also superior compared to his competitors. The plant was getting more and more profitable, buying land, purchasing production lines, hiring more employees. Even the famous Master Kung sent them a contract for food processing. Within 5 years, Boss Zheng's name spread throughout his hometown. His former friends began calling him Boss Zheng, Brother Zheng. From nothing to starting his plant in Wangai City, being able to buy a car, buy a house, and returning to his hometown in glory. From a taxi driver to a boss, his experience in the 5 years could be written into a book. But everything changed at the end of last year. The stock market sunk to the bottom. Rumors of the index striking 6124 finally faded. The stock market was averaging around 3,000 at the time. One of his business friends told him once when they were drinking that stock markets were a good place to make money, and if he had money, he should give it a try. Although he was a bit drunk, Zhang Hongji's head was still sober. His consciousness told him that this zero-sum game was not right. How could a market without producing any goods create value? Zhang Hongji didn't listen to his friend, but rather he told his friend not to be so drawn into tricky things. But his friend only laughed and didn't bother with him. 4 months later, his friend bought 2 apartments in the city. His previous car was upgraded to a BMW. When they were drinking again, the friend gloated on the fact that he used 1 million to make a stunning return of 5 million. Seeing his friend was now wealthy, Zhang Hongji felt regret. If he listened to his friend's words, it wouldn't just be 2 apartments. He would probably be living in a mansion by now. He worked hard for 4 months, and in the end didn't even make as much as his friend made in a few days. After a few more rounds, perhaps due to envy, Zhang Hongji casually asked, "Is it too late to get in now?" When he heard those words, his friend was immediately drawn to the conservation. He constantly boosted at how the economic condition is superb. It is only going to go up. There is no backing down this time. After a passion-filled conversation, Zhang Hongji was tempted. With only the food processing plant, it would take 10 years before he could become a millionaire, but he could with only a few days in the stock market. When he returned home, he hesitantly opened an account. Under the guidance of his friend, he tested the water by putting in 20,000. He didn't pay too much attention to the account as he was busy with his business until 1 month later when he remembered that he bought stock. He only opened the account out of curiosity and wanted to see how much money that 20,000 turned into. If it were a small amount, even if he lost it all, it would be okay. It would have been better if he didn't look. He immediately jumped up when he saw the number. The 20,000 turned into 50,000. He felt the world dazzling around him. It was not excitement but regret. That's right, it was regret. If he put in 2 million, it would have become 5 million. If he borrowed some money to buy 10 million, he would be a millionaire already. Humans' greed was infinite. The piercing 5,000 red number. He remembered Renren newspaper. The bull market is only halfway to the top. He immediately put all 2 million from his account into the stock market. Out of the 2 million, there was a 1 million loan used for the plant's expansion. Renren newspaper would not trick its citizens right. XXX can't be lying. If the stock market crashed, then XXX would be the first one to react. IHaveAMansion. It's hard to believe, but they did the trick. What can you do? In the start, he did feel excited as a 2% increase was 40,000. By just looking at that red line, he felt his entire body shake with excitement. He was starting to daydream about the life of a millionaire and forgot the caution he had before. With just half a month, he experienced the feeling of dropping down from heaven to hell. The index headed straight down. Thousands of stocks with 10% decreases became the norm, but the media kept pushing it up. The right opportunity to get into the bull market. Short-term adjustments for higher adjustment. Stock hits rock bottom. Now is the time to buy. The index can't drop anymore. The central government is discussing interest rate drop. 80% of organizations think the stock market is at the bottom. Pension plan is in discussion to enter the market. He continued to buy in only to continue to lose. The friend that promised him that it wouldn't drop below 4,000 points was nowhere to be seen. It was rumored that he borrowed money he shouldn't have, left his wife and children and escaped to the south. Jiang Chen wanted to die, but he couldn't. He has a wife that loved him dearly and a daughter that idolized him. The plant expansion was a no-go. Because he used the loan for other purposes, to avoid legal consequences, as well as being forced by the bank to sell assets to repay debt, Jiang Chen decided to borrow elsewhere to fill the hole. He borrowed money from his business friends and repaid the bank loan. Then he put the rest of the money into the plant, hoping he could slowly repay the debt. However, another unfortunate event occurred. Within less than a month, the high rising pork price increased the price of other foods, which directly increased the cost of producing canned foods and slammed the food processing industry. But to repay this debt, he practically accepted all orders and used the guarantee fee to maintain production and repay debt. With the price from the previous month based on the high rising cost of production, for every canned food he produced, he lost 1 RMB. But he had to keep producing, or else he would have to pay for breach of contract. If it was before, he could have easily handled this crisis with the cash on hand, but now. After debating, he chose to breach the contract and lost every single cent. He lost all opportunities to start up again. The bank would not loan him money, and he could no longer pay for the workers, so he had to let go of all employees. The 5 years was like a dream. Because of a legal Ponzi scheme, he went from high up in the clouds to hell. The stock market was like Inception. People on the outside were afraid. People on the inside couldn't escape. He left a sentence worth thinking about. Then he blew the last smoke ring before stepping on the cigarette butt. If he knew what would happen today, he wouldn't have done it from the beginning. To be honest, Jiang Chen also followed the stock market before, but before this July, he had no money in his pocket. He was quite lucky that he was always an outsider. Silently listening till he finished, Jiang Chen let out a sigh. Your experience could be written into a book. Do you have any plans? Probably driving. Selling the factory should be enough to pay off the debt and the missing salaries. Although I am not a boss anymore, I still have to maintain my morale as a person. He laughed self-mockingly as he shook his head. Morale is a bright spot. Jiang Chen secretly nodded his head as he heard Hongji's words. He didn't know how to operate a plant. Rather than going to a headhunter to find a manager, it would be better to hire this expert right away. I am talking about your future plans, not your plan for tomorrow. Jiang Chen smiled. He looked at the wry face, unfitting for his age, as he spoke lightly. Jiang paused for a moment. Me, probably driving. A waste of talent. I personally look highly of people with ability. Jiang Chen waved his hand and interrupted him, and he continued with a smile. What about this? Do you have any interest in working in my factory? Xinlong Food Processing Plant is still called Xinlong. You are still the head." Finishing his words, Jiang Chen extended his right hand and looked at him with a bright smile. Shocked, the aged face suddenly regained some liveliness. From the initial shock to the final excitement, Zheng Hongji extended his hand out, trembling, and held onto Jiang Chen's hand. He never imagined that the new owner of the factory would risk the bad luck and hire a failure. Regardless, the plant went down because of him. The closure of the factory was not because of your operational mistake. I think Xinlong would only be able to generate maximum value in your hands. I trust that you won't easily just let go of so many years of hard work. What do you think?" "I do." An answer without hesitation. He put Jiang Chen's hand down, as Zheng Hongji picked up the cigarette butt he threw on the ground. "What are you doing?" Jiang Chen was bewildered. Sanitation is critical in a food processing plant. When I was the head, without exaggerating, there was not a single bud in the entire plant. As if the spring breeze just blew by, all of a sudden, the rigid face returned to its former day liveliness. Jiang Chen shrugged, extinguished the bud, and followed him to the trash can to throw it in the bin. "Now that I have purchased the company, I will inject 1 million into it. I demand you to restart production within half a month. I just want to ask one thing, are you confident?" "Yes." Seeing Zheng Hongji shout out at the top of his lungs, Jiang Chen laughed and patted him on the shoulder. "That's the attitude. I trust you. Now go with me to the bureau to finish the process." Boss, could I invite you to lunch after the process? I don't have a lot of money, so I can't treat you at a restaurant." The 30-something man forced a laugh. Regardless, he wanted to invite the person that gave him a second chance for a meal to express his sincere gratitude. It was the tradition of his hometown and his insistence throughout his life. Slightly unexpecting it, Jiang Chen immediately laughed. "No problem." He noticed out of a sudden that the abjected man's chest finally rose up, as if he received a new life. Chapter 119, It's You Again. The process was completed quickly, and Jiang Chen acquired the rights to the factory. When the 2.7 million was transferred to Zheng Hongji's bank account, and he received the confirmation message on his phone, the man finally lets out a sigh of relief. He still acted as the plant manager with a base salary of 8,000, and based on sales there would be bonuses. Just like before, he would have to take care of everything from marketing to production. Although a bit overwhelming, Jiang Chen gave him a lucrative bonus plan. It would depend on his sales to see how much he would get in the end. "I won't care too much on how the plan is operated, but you have to do a few things for me." Although he said it casually, Zheng Hongji still sensed the inflexibility in his tone. "Please go ahead." Zheng Hongji nodded with an earnest expression. "First, if you want to do it, then go big. Processing for other people can be put aside. We'll have to develop our own brand." "Our own brand?" Zheng Hongji forced a smile and continued, "To be honest, I tried to start my own brand before, but the cost is too high. Sponsorship, distribution channel, it was incomparable to the profit margin of processing for other people. There's also more risk." Jiang Chen shook his head laughing. "Processing for other people is enough if we want to remain small, but I don't plan on doing that. I'll continue to invest in the early stages, including research and development, upgrading to the larger production lines, and expanding the plant. You don't have to worry about the sales channel. I'll mention it next. As to distribution, and I'll take care of it." Funny, there is no channel better than the internet, right? Promotion could be done on Future One, such as free moon cake during the Mid-Autumn Festival. Or when he makes Liu Yao famous, getting her to promote the brand would be simple. Seeing the boss so certain, although Zheng Hongji was still unsure, he didn't continue asking. "Second, this is the most important point. We'll transition to international trade. I need you to register for import and export requirement. The destination is currently Panu Island. We'll import the fruit to produce fruit can and sell domestically, then export other canned food." When he heard Jiang Chen's words, Zheng Hongji slightly raised his eyebrows. He asked, wondering, I considered export before, but it was not as easy as it seems. First being that we don't have a strong brand, second being the cost. We don't have any advantages compared to corporations in Australia or the Philippines. And the most critical factor is transport. I know a little about Panu Island. It's a small island country in the Pacific, and it doesn't even have a deep water port to dock larger ships. You don't have to worry about that. It won't be long until an investor builds a cargo port there. You only need to expand production and sell to them, and produce the cheap food imported from there into food cans. Jiang Chen smiled mysteriously and didn't explain more. Zhang Hongji paused as he had a weird expression on his face, looking at Jiang Chen. Although he was curious as to why the boss knew a lot about the third world country, but since the boss didn't plan to say more, he stopped asking. Third, this not something official, so you only need to keep it in mind. I need you to have surplus goods every month. It was okay to buy from the food store owner in the short term, but it was not a reliable long-term situation. Since goods only went into the warehouse and never out, 1 or 2 times, it wouldn't cause any suspicion, but any more than that would be problematic. Once the fishbone's population increases, it would have a higher demand for food. A food processing plant would be the safer choice. Surplus goods, Zhang Hongji almost thought he heard it wrong. Surplus goods referred to goods overproduced. Usually, it would either be given out to employees for free or discounted at a low price. It was the first time he heard someone wanted surplus good. IHaveAMansion, I'll let you know the amount, you only need to keep that in mind. These goods don't need to be branded. It's not for selling, I have other uses. After hearing Jiang Chen's explanation, Zhang Hongji didn't ask more. Although it was an odd request, it was nothing complicated. Him, being a boss before, knew that he only needed to listen. Dad. My cute daughter, haha, Daddy is back. Zhang Hongji hugged his daughter, who leaped towards him with a warm smile. Dad, who is this? The adorable girl blinked her big eyes looking at Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen kneeled down and looked at this energetic little girl with a smile. He then said with an amiable voice, Uncle is your dad's friend. What's your name? My name is Jiajia. I am in 2nd grade at experimental school Tilda, Jiajia replied in a cute tone. Jiang Chen paused when he heard experimental school. Uncle, are you okay? Jiajia tilted her head. Oh, nothing, he. Jiang Chen forced a laugh and answered in a light-hearted tone. Sun Jiao is probably still waiting for me on the other side. He peeked at his right hand. He tried this morning, but it still didn't work. You are back, and this is. A virtuous-looking woman came out of the kitchen and asked her husband when she saw Jiang Chen. This is my boss, Mr. Jiang. Zhang Hongji smiled at his wife. You finally sold the plant. I did, but Mr. Jiang hired me to continue to run the plant. Kang Jai looked at the smile she hasn't seen for a long time on her husband's face as her eyes became moist. She took a deep breath in, and to both Jiang Chen and Zhang Hongji's surprise, she sincerely bowed towards Jiang Chen. Honey, what are you doing? Jiang Chen looked at her actions, not knowing how to react. For a while, Hongji had been worried about the plant every day. He regretted trusting his friend's word. I was really scared that one day if he couldn't think things through, he would leave us. Tears began to emerge from Kang Jai's eyes. Seeing the tears in his wife's eyes, Zhang Hongji suddenly hugged her. Fool, there is no way I would leave you. The tough man's voice had a sob tone to it. Jiang Chen silently watched them as a smile emerged on his face. It would best not to interrupt them right now. Uncle, Jiajia looked up and blinked her big eyes at Jiang Chen. Do you have something, little Jiajia? Jiang Chen regathered his thoughts and kneeled down again, rubbing her hair. Thank you, Jiajia said sweetly. Jiang Chen suddenly burst out laughing. Jiajia tilted her head and looked at the uncle in front of her, confused. No problem, Jiajia is very courteous. For some reason, his mood was delighted at this moment. Because she received recognition, Jiajia smiled shyly. After Zhang Hongji had finished hugging his wife, he looked awkwardly at Jiang Chen. It was rather impolite to leave the guest hanging during a display of affection. The thin-skinned Kang Jai already fleeted to the kitchen. Jiajia tilted her head, not knowing the situation, while Zhang Hongji expressed his apology with a blushed face. Jiang Chen, with a smile, motioned it was okay. He then began to chat with Zhang Hongji on the sofa. Zhang Hongji was a talkative person, as he was a taxi driver before he started a business. Although his experience was nowhere near as exciting as Jiang Chen, his depth of experience far exceeded Jiang Chen's. His wife Kang Jai was a traditional woman. She virtuously cooked the meal and asked everyone to eat. On the table, Jiang Chen and Zhang Hongji had a few drinks. Jiajia curiously reached her hand towards the cup, which made Jiang Chen chuckle more. Is this the feeling of home? He thought about it, and it did feel like this when he was at the wily old fox Wang Dihai's place. He was suddenly envious of the feeling. He didn't know why. Maybe it was time to go back to his hometown Lake City. Perhaps during New Year. It was already October. Jiang Chen fell into a deep thought while watching the table filled with home-cooked dishes. But suddenly, a fierce door-smashing sound transmitted from the outside. It forced him out of his thoughts. Who? Jiang Chen was lost as he looked at Zhang Hongji. But Zhang Hongji was confused as well. He exchanged a confused look with his wife before he got up and walked towards the door. You are? Zhang Hongji opened the door as he looked confusedly at the men in front. Fuck you, we are here to collect our money. A few young men in shirts saw that the door was opened, and they didn't hesitate to force their way in. Wait, do you guys have the wrong person? After being pushed aside, Zhang Hongji struggled, frightened. This is the loan agreement, 3 million. We are debt collectors. A young man with a buzz cut aggressively pushed Zhang Hongji as they surrounded him, sneering. What are you guys doing? Let Hongji go. I'm going to call the police. Kang Jai took out the phone as she said shakingly. Police? Don't use cops to scare me. Let me get this straight. Do you know who my boss Sir Qiang is? The young man said cockily. A man in shades stood behind him with a cigarette in his mouth. He didn't speak. This guy was probably Sir Qiang. Dad. Jiajia saw that her father was in trouble as her adorable face twisted. With tears in her eyes, she wanted to run up. Don't come, Jiajia. Dad is okay. Zhang Hongji immediately stopped her. Kang Jai also grabbed Jiajia and hugged her. He took a deep breath as Zhang Hongji looked at the young men. I already prepared the money, and I'll borrow from my relatives some more in the next few days. Next few days? I want to take care of this today. At this moment, the young man suddenly saw Jiang Chen. His thuggish look instantly froze. To be honest, Jiang Chen was surprised from the start. He didn't expect to see him here again. Jiang Chen mischievously examined the young men as he opened his mouth. Oh, what a coincidence, it's you again. Chapter 120. Don't do it, I'll do it myself. A young man who didn't finish high school, followed by a few tattooed subordinates who also didn't finish high school. It would be more satisfying if he managed to hook up with a rebellious girl while still studying and act as the boss in front of a bunch of students. Although in front of a real boss, Liu Hu was still nothing. But compared to other punks, he was at least somewhat competent. He practiced a bit of martial arts, overlooked a construction site in the past, and hustled cash from grade schoolers. That last part didn't count. In any case, the Hongyi gang leader, Liu Changlong, recognized his ability during a street brawl. After being released by the police, he joined Hongyi gang, and through his fighting prowess, he finally climbed to success. However, his blissful life changed completely one day. His brothers surrounded a BTCH with a beautiful face without a background during one of their modi operandi. Paying off debt was expected from anyone. Otherwise, paying off using one's body also worked fine. It wasn't his first time doing something like this. But an average-looking guy came by, and not only he was physically strong, but he was also wielding a gun. Liu Hu was scared, and it suddenly dawned on him that he messed with the wrong person. The man didn't even bat an eye when he shot and maimed the leg of one of his thugs. When he felt the hot muzzle pressing against his temple, his hands went cold and his legs turned weak. In short, although he had brought the money back, He failed to complete the task given to him by his boss, which was to bring the person back, and made an enemy with someone he shouldn't have. This normally shouldn't be a big deal. After all, Liu Changlong had worked for Hong Yi Gang for so many years and had earned plenty of merits, so he shouldn't be kicked out just because of this. However, something unexpected happened which made him relive his former street thug life. It went something like this. Liu Changlong had received a phone call from his younger brother, Liu Anshan, asking him if he wanted to get rich. Liu Anshan recounted the story about Jiang Chen selling gold and had emphasized the fact that this person had a lot of gold, and there must be a stable source where it came from. Liu Changlong was tempted, but gold alone was not enough to sway him. However, if it was a stable source of income, that was something entirely different. He didn't care if it was a private mine or an ancient tomb. After all, how hard could it be to pry the secret out of someone with little or no background on his turf? Though before making a move, he cautiously investigated beforehand. The result of the investigation frightened him. This Jiang Chen was no simple character. Being the chairman of Future Technology was not the important point. The crucial point was when he hinted at his friends in politics. The response he received was, "Do not touch this guy." Even worse was the old city mayor personally made a directive with one word: support. His friend only vaguely explained to him that if he dared to touch him, all his hideous secrets would be exposed the next day. Then he would be incarcerated, and he would be beyond saving. The gang could only scare the ordinary people, not taking into consideration the people the city official personally stated to support. Anyone with some background would be difficult to offend. Because of this, his action couldn't be seen under the light. Of course, he didn't dare to make a move on Jiang Chen at the moment. He also didn't dare to use Liu Hu, who had offended Jiang Chen. Although Jiang Chen might not remember it, there was no point in taking the risk. So Liu Hu lost his job, and the thugs who followed him left one by one. Fortunately, one of his drinking friends recognized his talent in debt collecting, so he employed him to work in a debt collection agency. Scaring and hoaxing people. This combination would certainly put pressure on most ordinary citizens to pay off their debts. 28% was not a bad commission rate, especially the faster it was completed, the higher the commission would be. For the stubborn ones, some punches and kicks would easily solve the problem, and as long as he didn't do anything extreme, the cops couldn't do anything to him. But what he didn't expect was meeting the demon Jiang Chen again. Liu Hu's face looked like he just ate a piece of SHT. Jiang Chen ignored him and looked at the person behind him, who got up and said, "Boss, why can't you collect debt nicely? What's the point of being so angry and starting a conflict?" The man wearing a pair of sunglasses looked over when he heard the words and guffawed. "Are you involving yourself in something that's none of your concern?" "None of my concern? Isn't that the job of an employer?" Jiang Chen surprisingly shrugged, his face betraying not the slightest hint of fear. The one called Sir Qiang burst out laughing, then slowly took off his shades. The thugs saw their boss was about to make a move, so they maliciously surrounded Jiang Chen. "You son of a BTCH, who do you think you are?" "Boss Jiang, this is my business, so you don't have to stand up for me." Zhang Hongji smiled bitterly while trying to persuade Jiang Chen. He did not expect that his former good friend would make use of a debt collection agency to make him pay back the money he owed. He probably thought he would run away, since one of their friends, whom they also had drunk with regularly, ran away after being deep in debt after losing big in the stock market. "Sir Qiang, you can't touch this person." Liu Hu rushed forward to stop his brother, but Li Qiang didn't care at all. Debt collection was all about the aggression. What's the point in collecting debt if they would just get scared? They should have just studied law instead. "Can't touch him, Li Qiang. Although I don't know who you are, I won't tolerate you cursing my mother." Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed and fastly becoming enraged. "Funny, Daddy didn't even curse. I'm going to fuck you up." Li Qiang's eyebrows shot up provocatively, and he became even more aggressive. The man in front of him didn't look like he could fight. However, before he could even complete his words, His eyes began to blur as he flew into the closet. Kong Jai covered Jiajia's tiny head to prevent her from witnessing this violent scene. Zhang Hongji looked dumbly at his boss. He could not imagine his boss, who was not even taller than him, had the ability to send someone flying with a kick. When the thugs saw that their boss was beaten, they hesitated for a moment before lunging at Jiang Chen with their fists out. Jiang Chen let out a sigh. His eyes suddenly turned fierce, and then he stretched out his hands. Liu Hu, on the other hand, didn't make a move. He smiled wryly and closed his eyes. He had experienced firsthand how vicious he could get. The fight ended almost instantly, with the previously mocking hooligans splayed awkwardly on the ground. What a joke! With muscle strength plus 30, even a boxing champion wouldn't be his opponent. With reflex plus 32, even if they sprouted 2 more hands, it would yield the same result. Jiang Chen shook his fist and looked at Liu Hu, who was standing on the side, with a sardonic smile. "You don't need to do anything. I'll do it myself." Liu Hu smiled bitterly before raising his fist ready to knock himself out. "Don't be nervous. Do I look that vicious to you? Just hold still and everything will be okay," Jiang Chen smilingly told him. "Is there even a point of watching?" Of course, Liu Hu would not dare to say it out loud. His raised hand was frozen in midair, and he had a peculiar expression on his face. "I thought you were collecting debts for Hangyi Gang. What, the pay is too low, so you started your own business?" Jiang Chen watched Liu Hu thoughtfully, and a hint of mockery laced his tone. Zheng Hongji and Kangji were utterly stunned. Jiajia was flapping her hands in her mother's arms, wanting to get a good look at her surrounding. Liu Hu glanced at his brothers on the floor and sighed. "Got fired." Liu Hu explained everything that happened after that night, including the things he knew, and the thing he shouldn't have known but heard. When he heard the gold store manager, Liu Anshan, had leaked his information, and the Hangyi gang leader, Liu Changlong, was ready to make a move on him, Jiang Chen cursed in his mind. Although he was not afraid of these scums of society, what happened here made him reflect on the carelessness of his past actions. Selling gold attracted unwanted attentions of a different kind. He was lucky that his improvement skyrocketed that made Liu Changlong backed off right away, or else he would be facing far more treachery and danger. "All right, you may now excuse yourself." Jiang Chen didn't want to waste too much time on a cannon fodder. Upon hearing those words, Liu Hu immediately left, leaving his comrades on the floor without a second thought. Zheng Hongji saw that Liu Hu had left. He glanced at the thugs on the floor and asked Jiang Chen with a troubled tone, "Mr. Jiang, how do we take care of this?" Jiang Chen watched the people lying on the ground and scratched his head in annoyance. 3 of them probably had their ribs broken, and 2 of them definitely had their hands fractured. Li Qiang was knocked out with just 1 kick. Because he didn't fight that often, he didn't know how to control his power. Jiang Chen secretly activated Fury, and when he saw that no one had died, he secretly let out a sigh of relief. He took out the phone from his pocket and called 110. "Hello, 110, I want to report a crime. This is what happened. Better blame it on them first." After explaining the situation, Jiang Chen hesitated for a bit before calling Wang Ziyang's number. "Hello, Brother Chen, what's up?" Wang Ziyang's brash voice came through from the other side of the phone. "Just a bit of trouble. Some punks were giving me trouble, so I injured all of them." Jiang Chen cut straight to the point. The last time they had a drink, they started calling each other brother. So in the moment of trouble, the only one Jiang Chen could think of was him. "Fuck, who dares to touch my brother? Where are you? I'll bring my people to beat their asses," Wang Ziyang cursed and was instantly incensed. Jiang Chen was speechless at his words. This guy didn't even inquire about the injuries but was already ready to give them a beating once again. I already beat them down, but I have to go to the police station to give my statement. Do you have some connections with the police?" "Whoa, you beat all of them. Don't worry about the evidence, it's self-defense. Although I am not close to the police, I am tight with their superiors," Wang Ziyang chortled. I hit them first." "Don't worry, if I said it's self-defense, it's self-defense. You only need to say that during the investigation." Damn, political influence sure is a great thing.